What's that? A nuclear explosion? That flash of light. Ooh, that flash of light. Ooh, that flash of light. What's that flash of light? You know, what is that okie dokie Mudpuppie illusion? It's the illusion of commerce and the power of the high priest. That's what we live in. We have all these religions that really, come on. Back in the day, I was working for a lawyer, and I was the guy who dug up the information, looked at the trends, read the judge and the jury and the opponent lawyer, and I could tell, at least 80% of the time, what people felt, what people were thinking, how they were going to react, and what, I'm a strategy guy, what the strategy should be, right? But the other thing we did within that context was we put together 501c3 IRS proposals for nonprofits, and all these large companies, all these rich people had their little nonprofit that basically they were laundering their money through and using as their tax-free, piggy bank, and or ATM, and that's exactly what Donnie did. The thing about Donnie Chump is that he's no worse than any of the other morons. He is just deluded because his whole friggin' life, his daddy has bailed him out. His whole friggin' life, he has been this person who was entitled. He never stepped up. He never did the homework. He never, I've got a really amazing brain. No, well, if he did, he sure didn't use it. Because Daddy always bailed him out because Daddy was using his own son to launder money. I mean, the 400 million that his daddy gave him, his daddy was a billionaire, and you look at Donnie's family tree, the bloodline. Those guys are right in there with the Rothschilds. They're not Rothschilds, but if you take them far enough back, they're in the Merovingians. You take them far enough back, they were stealing back in the day of the Crusades. That's what the Crusades were about. The Catholic Church kept everyone stupid and living with their pigs. I mean, why is King James such a moron piece of work? Is that for 900 years the Catholic Church had monkeys with big pens copying, the text, right? And what's beautiful about, that it's the word of God. No, it's a word of monkeys. But the mathematics in the Bible is truly amazing. It is a kaidos or a key to how you can look at other things, right? And so is Kabbalah. What is King James but the Old Testament? What's the Old Testament? It is the Torah, right? The New Testament is, something close to a DC comic book, right? Because it's a bunch of morons writing the story. And do we ever see, the smartest guy there, the person, like when he was 13, all the rabbis were calling him rabbi. Where's his text? Where's his Kodai, right? Reason why it's not there is because Jesus is still with us. Jesus has never left. Jesus is always here, and that's why we're still here. The human race has let me down. I expected us to be living in caves eating gruel, but something higher than the moron, meat puppets are controlling things, and it's not the powers that shouldn't be, the sock puppets, or even the powers, you know, in the unknown hand of it's not the cricket people, and it's not the reptiles, and it's not any of that stuff. Now, they exist in this illusion world, right? But they are disconnect. The difference between them and us is that we actually have a soul. Those other guys, all they got is an ego. They have nothing that can compare to empathy or understanding, and that's why we mud puppets are so easy to manipulate. We'll kill our mother for chump change. We'll sell our children off as sex slaves just so we can have a Jaguar in the driveway. Everyone thinks material goods are the dynamic of what it is. Commerce. We were not born for commerce. We were born for poetry. And a zillion people are writing poetry thinking it's the best thing since sliced bread, but nobody's reading it. Stanley Myers water fuel cell. Of course, I got a good story for this. So, when I was 16, Grandpa Stoll got me into Cooper Union, which is a college down on the Lower East Side off of 2nd Avenue. And it was around since before the Civil War. This guy named Cooper invented some little widget that made steam engines, economically feasible, industrially appropriate, right? And his wife, Union, she was an English landscape artist, amazing, top of her form of her type, right? So both of them were making some serious money. They came together, fell in love, moved into New York, loved New York, had a great, bought a bunch of real estate, and had beautiful homes, and they lived up in the Bronx. You know why they call it the Bronx? Because a family named the Bronx owned it. And so we're going up to see the Bronx, the family, The Queens, they didn't call it the Queens, no. They didn't call it the Brooklyn, no. They didn't call it the Manhattan. They didn't call it the Staten Island. This one family owned owned the Bronx. And it was the most beautiful. It was like the rolling hills. It was just before you got into the Poconos, right? And so anyway, Cooper and Union came together. They got married. They had more money than God. They bought a bunch of real estate, and they basically had a chunk of land down there in the East Side near the Five Corners. So they started a college of engineering and art. And they had so much money, they put it into an endowment, and they invested in, stock and this and that, and they were smart. They did a wise job on doing that. And within 20 years, their college was built and beautiful, and they had great teachers. And what they realized, as I realized, as your sensei Al Bob, what matters is not the number of students, it's the quality of students. So in that school, I think even to today, they pick people who will make the community of that school something special. And so when I went there, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it's still this way, but they paid tuition for everything. You didn't have to pay anything, right? And so Grandpa Stoll, I'm 16, and you had to be 20 years old to go to this school because they wanted mature people. And if you studied engineering, it was an engineering, architect, and art school, visual arts. And if you studied engineering, you had to study architecture and visual arts. If you were a painter or a sculptor, you had to study architecture and engineering, right? If you were an architect, you had to study engineering and art. And it turned out amazing people. The people came out of there were amazing. And they were socially active. Meaning they had banks, they had things, had invested in the people in the Five Corners. They had cultural, they had museums and and galleries and performance spaces. Anyway, so Grandpa Stalls, I'm 16. I'm still going to high school. I'm going to a prep school. And it was called the Winchington School for Boys in Winchington, Mass. And I went to school with the richest people on the planet. Charles, my grandson, Joe Kennedy was my roommate. Those Kennedys. Alex Orb, U.S. Steel, Perry Dye, Seagram's, you name the corporation. And these families owned the corporations, you know. And so this is, they were the board of directors, right? They controlled everything, right? So very similar to what Donnie had in the Trump, corporation. So, but a lot smarter, right? So I went to this prep school, and we had 6 kids to a teacher. I mean, it was like being taught by Socrates, and our teachers were all guys who went to Brown and all these really great schools, and the only way they could get out of the Vietnam War is be a high school teacher. That was you could get a thing out of. Didn't have to be rich, and these guys were smart and went well educated. And when I was a sophomore, they kind of all the teachers, because they were young, they were really interesting, and they kind of realized if they changed us, we could change the world. And so they did. And so my high school, I was learning Greek, Latin. I was reading all, the great masters, literature and science. And, there were 6 of us, and that teacher would motivate us by not like, you got to pass the test. No, they motivated us because we lived with these guys, and we were a family, and they were trying to get us, just like Socrates, did, with Alexander. They wanted to change the world. So they were teaching us and making us young men who would change the world for the better, right? And so it was like prison. We were there 24/7. We went to class 7 days a week. And in Massachusetts, you passed a grade by how many hours? So, like within 3 months, we had more time in than most kids in public school per year, And so we didn't start school until October. And we got off around the 2nd of December and didn't go back until about the 10th of January. And then we left school in May 1st. And we had more time in classroom than, like I said, public schools. Right? Yes, disco looking like Swiss cheese. That's my aesthetic tonight. Fire the water through the barrel of bonds. Yep, O2, H2O. So I'm getting to Stanley Meyer's carburetor, right? So just go along for the ride, Jamie, and so anyway, so at 16, Grandpa Stoll walks me into the president's office of Cooper Union. Now, everyone owes Grandpa Stoll a favor. And he goes, Larry, this is my boy. He's going to school here tomorrow, electrical engineering department. And Larry goes, no problem, Grandpa Stoll. And Grandpa walks out, and I stick with Larry, and he gives me the 401, who I'm going to see, writes things down on a little cue card, and I run off and catch up with Grandpa Stoll so he doesn't walk in front of a bus. Next day, I'm all bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I show up in my nice little khaki pants and my nice little, white shirt, but I don't go all the way. I'm not wearing a black tie and a plastic pen holder, meaning I'd run into enough electrical engineers to know what the garb was. Anyway, so I'm 16, and I have my little notebook and my little pencil, and I'm a smart kid, meaning I've had all of these amazing, brilliant people as my mentors my whole freaking life, and I know to shut up, not to say anything, to listen, to get, the wisdom coming out of the wise man's mouth. So he's showing us how to do a field equation for a transformer, right? And I'm watching this. Now, I've already done this. Grandpa showed me how to do this when I was 9. By the time I was 12, I was laying transformers and setting the taps, So I'm watching him, and he's drawing a really stupid diagram of a transformer. And, it's not even like what a modern transformer is today. It's like something out of a textbook, because that's where this came from, a textbook. So anyway, I'm like watching it, and then he goes, "Do you have any questions?" And all the other guys with white shirts and black ties and plastic pen holders and their slide rule because I didn't need a slide rule, because in field equations you don't have to take it more than 3 zeros past the decimal point, right? You don't have to go 16 zeros. Anyway, so this guy's up there, and I raise my little hand because he goes, "Anyone have a question?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he looks at me like, "What are you? Who are you? What are you?" Who? And I basically walk past him and erase his equation and the picture of the diagram of the transformer. And I go, "This transformer here hasn't been used since the 1890s. And this is what a modern transformer looks like." And I use, the electrical engineering diagram emojis. And then I put up the equation that he was working on. Instead of using half the blackboard, I just used 3 lines. And I, show all the balances and the things that feed into the equation. And then I show 3 little steps of trigonometry. Bingo, there is the answer, right? And I got the same answer he did, but just to 3 zeros. And he goes, but you didn't show your work. And I turned around to him, and I pointed at the diagram. I said, well, all it has to do is make this work. What you're talking about is in the 1890s textbook, and you're barking this whole class up the wrong tree. You're teaching them shit that won't be useful. And that's what they do in colleges today. Anyway, he was livid. And he threw me out of the class and got on his little telephone and called the head office. And the president of the freaking school came down and got me and said, "Al, I'll come back to my office." So I came back to his, and we're in the office. He goes, "Listen, I know you're a smart kid, because Grandpa Stahl would not have walked in here and said he's going here tomorrow. But you can't tell a 58-year-old guy who's been an engineer for 32 years that he's wrong, even if he is wrong." I said, "But that's not going to do anyone any good, especially those students. They're morons." He goes, "That's right, they're morons." And he goes, "I don't think you're going to fit in to the electrical engineering department, but we have this new department that I think you are going to be perfect for." And I go, "Really?" And he goes, "Yes, alternative technologies." This is 1966. So I go, "Well, that's great. Okay." And so he takes me down to this class and knocks on the window, and the guy opens up the door and goes, "Hey, Bob, this is your new student. Grandpa Stahl says he's the boy." And so Bob knows Grandpa Stahl. "Oh, he's one of Grandpa Stahl's boys. You're in." So I go in, and 3/4 of that class are guys who are architects and artists, wearing leather jackets and cowboy boots, and and I'm the only one kind of look, but I don't have the black tie or the right. And so he's basically, and the teacher is smoking a pipe with a cigar stuck in it. And what he's got tamped down in the bottom, because he keeps taking the cigar out and lighting it, is marijuana. But he sticks his cigar in there and lights it so the smell of cigar will kind of, everyone knows this. So the guys in the back are smoking joints, and he's not even caring. And he's going on about everything you would want to know. So this is like the first day of the class. He goes, "Okay, no textbook, no test, no quiz. You ask me if this is on the quiz, you fail immediately." This is where I learned how to put that on my, when I taught, Anyway, so he goes, "All I want you guys to think of is something that will change the world." Right? So we go for, whole 3 months, and I'm going to be heading off to, high school. But we have this project too. And he broke us up into study groups, not, so we were not competing against each other. We had these study groups. He said, everyone has to get it or you fail, right? So the five guys I hung out with, one was an auto mechanic sculptor. One was he worked in a draft shop. He was going to be an architect. Another guy was working at Bell Labs, had a place downtown. He was going to be, the next Nikola Tesla. Another guy was, again, he was a theater arts guy, learning how to do trompe l'oeil. So, and I used to go to all these guys' other classes because they were interesting, right? And this guy who was a mechanic had his own garage on Avenue B near Houston Street. And so anyway, and one of us had, I had this truck, but I was too young to drive it. So it was like everybody's truck. And it was like a contractor's truck, big pickup truck with all the boxes on it and stuff like that. And I used to drive it around because in New York, if you didn't break the law, no one cared, right? Even if you broke the law, if you didn't kill anyone, no one cared. Even if you killed someone and it didn't diss a cop, they didn't care. That's when I learned about police, like never trust a cop and always get on their better side. Play them rather than them playing you. Anyway, so we're sitting in there and, smoking herb and drinking wine and drinking beer. And so the auto mechanic guy, he's like changing the oil on this truck, right? And this was the first year, no, it wasn't, but they were starting to phase in New York State the emissions test. So he had been actually given one of these gizmos to fix, right? Because some mechanic had it, didn't know how to use it, screwed it up. Anyway, so he had one of those gizmos. So he was playing with it and seeing what it did, and that truck was the perfect example because it took 1 gallon of gasoline to go half a mile, and it the black crud that came out, looked like the worst diesel engine you could ever imagine. So anyway, we're all like sitting around and shooting the breeze and smoking bud and drinking, and he goes, and it's a Friday, and he goes, don't we have to isn't something due Monday? Like, how are we going to change the world? And if we don't do it, we'll fail. And if we fail, we're all going to go to Vietnam and die. And not me, I'm going to go to high school. But everyone goes, yeah, what are we going to do? And I don't know if you guys knew Tom Terrific, but Soupy Sales was a kid's show that was like X-rated. And my next show, I'm going to be bringing out a new show, and it's going to be Soupy Sales for the 21st century, right? And Soupy had, this girlfriend, and he would tell jokes like to his buddies. I went to the baseball game the other night, and I kissed my girlfriend between the strikes, and she kissed me between the beep. And so that's my next thing, because I really have to, I'm a griot. I can tell you a good story. I can entertain, but I have to pick up where my mentor, George Carlin, I have to be George, I have to step up to George Carlin, right? So anyway, and I try to write like him. Did you ever read Enemy? I love this book, as Jesus brought the barbecue, and brain droppings, and I Hate Everyone. I mean, he had some really good books. He was the best thing George Carlin could do was write. And that's why his shtick was so good, because he wrote it. Anyway, so there we are in the garage, and we're saying, and then this guy who's working on my car, his little Tom Terrific, hat went off, and he started running around the shop picking up stuff and doing this and getting things ready. And he starts on the blackboard drawing this picture, and inside that truck, the engine was so small you could live inside the area that, you lift up the hood, and like 80% of the thing was just clear space. So he's getting in there with his welder, and he's welding a piece of steel, and he puts another alternator on it and another little wheel off the belt, and puts that on the alternator. And then he goes in the pile of junk. He finds these stainless steel. I don't know if you remember this, but Coca-Cola syrup used to come in stainless steel tanks. Now they come in cardboard bags with a plastic bag, and they just throw that away. Stainless steel tank kept getting recycled, and it had these two, things that pressure hose would just snap into, right? And so because it'd be under pressure. So he drilled two holes. He put two electrodes, right? Carbon electrodes in there and insulated them from the tank. He ran the wires from the alternator, and then he welded the tank sideways, right? Not like this, but this way. And he put water into that tank, started the engine. The alternator put current in the tank. The current turned the water into hydrogen, oxygen, and because that tank was sideways, he had one outlet up here where the hydrogen would, because it's lighter, would come out, and another one over here that was oxygen because it's heavier, and he drilled and tapped two holes into the carburetor, and then he was injecting hydrogen and oxygen into that carburetor, which was then mixing into the carburetor and putting it into the pistons. And that truck went from getting a half a mile to the gallon and looking like a coal-fired vehicle to getting 98 miles to the gallon of gasoline. And when we put the little sensor into the tailpipe, the only thing it showed was water. And we did that and he did it mostly. We helped him out, but he was, do this, hold this, do this, And within 8 hours, we had the truck working. We drove it up to Connecticut, got a lobster dinner, and then drove back on 25 cents worth of gasoline. This is 1966, right? So we're so proud of ourselves. Monday comes, everyone's got like little dioramas made out of ice cream sticks, and they're talking about this, and they're like, oh, that's pretty good, okay. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Okay. And then he turns to us. So you chuckleheads, what do you got? And we said, well, we have to go out into the parking lot to show you. And he goes, oh, okay, well, it's the end of class. Everyone's dismissed. Let's go. So we go out there, and we, it's an automatic. And so, okay, get in the driver's seat, turn on the motor, right? He looks at it, and the gas gauge is below E, right? So we drive to the gas. This is when they had gas stations on Houston Street. We drive to a gas station, and we put 25 cents of gasoline. And in that day, 25 cents of gasoline in 1966, 25 cents got you a gallon and a quarter, right? So it was like 15 cents a gallon, and the other 10 cents was 3/4. Anyway, so we have like a gallon and a quarter in it, and it just barely goes above the E, which shows that this thing actually works. I mean, it's not rigged, right? And then we take off. We all, and this truck had a gigantic like living room seat, right? So we all kind of stuff in there. And the mechanic guy is driving the car, and we drive, again, back up to that same fish lobster joint in Connecticut. We get on 95, go all the way up there, get off somewhere along the coast of Connecticut and go get ourselves a lobster dinner. And then we drive back. And it's, it's still somewhat summer. So the light, it's 8 o'clock, we get back, the sun is still up. And flashlight, look at the... and we pull into the garage that has lights, and he's got the flashlight, he's looking around. And then he goes, okay, pop the hood. So we pop the hood, and he sees what we got. He goes, okay, guys, you did the best, you got a gold star, and I thought you guys would do something like this. You are my best, adepts, We were starting the Institute for Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technology. We were his adepts, right? And that's why I kind of got that thing for you guys. Anyway, so we're like all proud of ourselves, and they goes, what are you going to do with it now? And we go, well, we're going to get it patented, and then we're going to sell it, and then we're going to change the world. And he goes, now wait a minute. First off, you started working on this around 4:30 in the afternoon this Friday, and you had already smoked half an ounce of pot, and you drank 2 6-packs. And then you spend another 6 to 10 hours, and you put it together in 6 to 10 hours, right? Now, few chuckleheads could think of this in less than 10 hours and bring it to completion. Don't you think somebody else has done this? No, you have to take this out and destroy it and never say another word about this. We were like, huh? And he goes, and that's when he told us about Operation Paperclip. And he came to America as a young boy. His father was a electrical engineer and from Germany, and he wasn't Jewish, but he couldn't stand what happened to Germany, right? And this guy could remember what it was like when he was 8 years old. And he said the first place the Nazis invaded was Germany. So he bailed, the whole family bailed, because they could, because his dad worked for RCA and said, hey, I want to work in New Jersey. And they said, fine. So he went there and became an American citizen and all the rest. And World War II happens, and he's 20 years old, and he is going to school to be an engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer. I mean, this guy is brilliant, physicist, and he was going to school. He wasn't in any special project that would have got him out of going to war, and he really wanted to go fight those fracking Nazis, and so. And because he could speak German like a German, and he knew the lingo and the culture, and he could pretend in Germany, they have like 8 states, which are just like here. They talk German in a certain way. They have certain mannerisms. They tell, one person calls it schnitzel, another calls it pork, another calls it sausage. So anyway, he knew how not to get caught. And they dropped him behind enemy lines, just as in 19, almost 45 before the Germans, and after the Battle of the Bulge collapsed, and he went back there, and his job was to line up German scientists, and say, hey, the jig is up, and you can get caught by the Russians and become lunch meat, or you can let the really upset people who have just been bombed in the Stone Age, put you on the spit, or you can come back to America and eat at Howard Johnson's, and have a nice clean house, and we give you a new name and a new everything, and you'll be hunky-dory. Okie dokie. That's what I'm talking about. Okie dokie. Right? And all you got to do is swear by the doctrine of the clown religion, right? And I don't know if you've ever heard of the sick frackin', clown posse. I have a band. Well, they actually, came from a guy named Henry Kissinger and the 2 Dulles brothers. They did more to destroy this planet and the soul of humanity than any 3 human beings, on the face of the earth. And so this guy, says, come on, let's go over to my friendly pub and let's get drunk. And so he told us every story, every hideous thing that he saw. He went into, Mengele's death camp of 1.5 million, and they only had Jews there. They didn't have gypsies and other things because they were doing genetic work. They had sussed, the DNA helix, and they were making chimeras. They were making, eagles and human beings, and goats, and you name it, they were doing it, and they were figuring out how to live for friggin' ever, and all the stuff that we now call cutting edge technology came from those guys, and they were already making clones then. And the little gray guys that people say are clones, worker drones, they're biological EBEs, they're biological entities, and they were like biological robots, right? And, the reptiles and the reptoids and the cricket people and, the insectoids, they are all a genre of that. Now, they didn't come from the Nazis. Not all of them, anyway. They came from the other morons who made us, And all those Egyptian gods with wings and beaks and you name it, this is what, and so here I am, 16, getting a little buzzed, and he is telling us the 411 of the world to come, that the world we were already in, right? Okay, that's enough of that story. Let's see. Yep. O2 and H2O. Yep. Just like we did. Yes, mass producing. But that's what the guy who, that movie Tucker, where he made this unbelievable car. That's what he did. He was exposed to this, and he wanted to make a car for the people everyone could afford. People, his brother and his sister died in a car crash, and he was driven to make it so you could survive. And they ate the poor guy alive. Control grid. I hear Stanley to meeting, and I mean, look at the guy who invented TV. Farnsworthy, right? I mean, I've told this story. He's a farmer out there in the middle of nowhere. Ohio or Illinois. And he's like going behind, a mule plowing. He didn't even have a tractor, and he's got this vision of television, in his head. He read about it in Scientific America. He's a brilliant guy with no education, and he is creating things. I don't know if any of you are farmers or hung out in farms, but farmers, up until recently, they did everything. They fixed their tractors, they fixed the harvester, they fixed the electric, they fixed the plumbing, the milking machine, everything. They were like amazing fixing. I mean, that's really. I worked on a number of farms where I was Mr. Fix-It. I was the farmer electrician. Anyway, you can't do that now. You have a big international harvester. It's run by a computer. You can't touch it. If you do, the warranty is broken. Every piece of equipment has a warranty like that. And so these guys got you by the short hairs, Thank you so much for all the help you have been giving. Gang, I'm here. You're my cadre. You guys, get a hold of me at, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. And, all of you who write to me and I write back, will tell all of you that, yeah, I was really, but I need some help. I gave the 411 of like, I'm living on ice here. And 1 second I'm like under the bus, and I go, oh, I'm sorry, you're my, and who knows where I'll be, in 10 minutes from now. So, and again, the canary in the coal mine, good heart, good person, but has been so traumatized by the world around him, just as most of us have been. All of you there, I know you, I see your energetics. I know you are damaged folk. I am to a certain degree, but only because I knocked my head. It took me until I was 20 to realize you can't fight City Hall. And, I was assassinated a number of times. So, I've learned to be Sensei Al Bob. The Minister of Fun. I have to find another term because the Minister of Fun, taken down to Sumerian, means the dictator of distraction. And that's not who I am. So, yep. So I need some help. You can send, my P.O. Box 1165, Vinton, Virginia, 24179, or you can send something in Western Union, Al D, Martino, get on the old blower, the dude awake 42. Leave me your phone numbers if you're in America. I'll call you up. There are a lot of people I have nice conversations with, and so I'm at your disposal. Yes, all of the all the technology we see is not as advertised. 90% of all the things. Does anyone have night vision goggles? Has anyone taken night vision goggles and gone like where I live in the deep green? There isn't a street light for like 40 miles. There isn't a truck stop. There isn't a Walmart. There isn't a big box store or a town within 30 miles of me. So the light is unbelievable, meaning the stars, it's like being in New Mexico back in the 60s, before they dug up the coal there and burnt it there and wired it to Philadelphia and LA, anyway, and Las Vegas. So I have a friend of mine who has military spec night vision goggles, and he will come there with a nice bottle of brown liquid and a little bud, and we will sit in hammocks and look up at the open sky, and it's unfreaking believable. I mean, they're zipping around. You can't believe how many, what would we call it? Air, flying devices that press the bounds of present advertised technology, meaning go from one side of the sky to the other, and you just use simple geometry and realize from one sky to the other is 140 miles within the little opening of the forest meadow where my deep green is, and they'll do it in 2 seconds, meaning they'll go, somewhere between 150 miles and 400 miles in 2 seconds, and then make a right turn, and then go straight up, and then go straight down, and then and then go open up a door and bing, disappear, right? And that's our stuff. The stuff that are, other folk, you don't even see. They don't even need. I mean, if you're coming from Alpha Centauri, you're not doing it on a rocket ship. You're opening up a door in your closet and entering the men's room in Hardee's down on Main Street. Well, they don't twinkle. Stars don't twinkle. And yes, the rainbow, it's like a lens, so the light comes through the lens. But, night vision goggles, especially military grade, they amplify the light and coalesce it, meaning really take all, try to take all the disturbances out so you really see what it is. So stars look pretty amazing. You can see the planets. And my friend actually has a really kick-ass telescope, I mean, a really good one, that has a night vision thing that he puts on the front of the telescope, and he has in it a CCD, camera that he plugs, his PC into, and he has software in there that's like straight from a JPL that can take out any disturbance. So you can read the license plate on the flying saucer. So if you come visit, you might get to be lucky to play with my friend's toys. And so the world is not what it seems to be. Everything advertised on, MSNBC, Fox, CNN, they're all owned by the same folk. So here's another little story. So when I got really sick, I got stuck up here for about 7 months. And that's when I started writing my novels. And again, you need to go to my xratted.blogspot.com and read only 3/4 of one of my novels. I have 26 novels, about 80 short stories, about 500 white papers, meaning, dissertations on this or that. And you will get a good sense. If you like Robert Anton Wilson, if you like, anything from the 50s and 60s science fiction guys, the old school, real interesting guys, then you will like what I'm like. As a friend of mine who's a publisher said, I am like James Joyce on acid, right? and I drop a lot of information, and I'm a codice, meaning if you go this, and I basically only gave the 3 quarters of that novel because the last quarter is what I call it's like the code key, meaning I forget what I really call it, but it's like the dictionary of telling you the 411 of all the stuff I'm dropping. And when I put something in there that's important, I put a little asterisk and a number. So you go back to that codis and look that number up, and it'll give 3 or 4 paragraphs of what I'm talking about. So I can be your animal totem, right? Maybe that's what I should call it, the totem pole. Anyway, so a story. Oh yes, more recent story. Big being said to be able to. Yes, they're dimensional characters. Why do you think they disappear like that? And the other thing you should really go look at is that there are up to 2 million people in just the United States that go missing, and especially out in national forests. Bob and Mrs. Bob and the 3 kids are like hiking through the woods to go camp, and they stop to look at something beautiful, and they turn around, and Susie and Jimmy are gone. I mean, they were right there. It's not like they ran off and they're like, Jimmy, come back here. No, they are gone. Gone is gone, gone, gone. Their footprints go up to here and stop. And they go running back. They get on their cell phone or whatever, and they get the Forest Service people out there. And the Forest Service people have this protocol where, yeah, they go looking for them. They get a, party. They got a helicopter up in the air, and they spend 36 hours. That's it. Don't find the kid in 36 hours. That's it. Sorry. They never, ever write it up. It's not in the Forest Service documents. Then you go look at Homeland Security because they deal with other populations that if they go missing, they look for them. Legal immigrants, and where do they go, So there's close to more than 2 million folk go missing in the United States every freaking year. What's happened to those guys? Well, part of it is, organs for rich people. Blood, they have a process now where they take someone just coming into hormonal age, somewhere between 12 and 15. They take out their blood and a few other little organs, and they make up a special mixture, and they take out the old blood of the old rich person, and they put this blood in, and it jacks those people up, and they, can go feel like they're 22, they're 90, like, Poppy Bush, he felt like he was, and that's, and I know that for a fact because my father had that, process done to him. And when I asked the doctor, so where do you get this stuff, this jungle juice? He goes, oh, it's just, I said, no, it isn't. I kind of taken a little bit of that blood from the bottle after you disconnected him. And I took it to a friend of mine who has some, he has a real biological lab. And he said, I've never seen anything like this. All these little things in this blood are doing things they're not supposed to. Right? So, and that's when I started to take my meditation and do the same thing that blood does, but in a meditative way. When I bring you into state and I have you look at the prana, so they're doing a like okie dokie version of meditation, but through blood, just taking the old blood out and putting this jungle juice in. Okie dokie juice. Okie dokie is a 19th century term for, oh, you're going to pay me a lot of money for being corrupt, stupid, and just going along, going along to get along. Well, okie dokie, that's the okie dokie world. And that's that's what's killing our frigging soul. Because we're selling our soul for an iPad, Yep. Spirited Away, sex slaves, sacrifices, you name it, you know. And I don't understand our politicians are the best money can buy. And not only that, once they get in there, they have to be turned. So, did you ever go see the movie Eyes Wide Shut? Well, go see that movie. Now, that movie was totally fracked with because the guy who made it made the same movie of the fake of the moon landing. Because the yokels at NASA, just because they had a big Roman candle, you know, they didn't go. But then, because the Nazis had already gotten to the moon in 1938, and were on Mars by 43. End of World War II, Germany, the German people were once again okie dokied into the Stone Age. It happened in World War One, World War II, and if there's World War III, they will be the first to be incinerated. They are the sacrificial lambs. Stanley Kubrick, thank you. Tab S2. Yep. So Stanley made Eyes Wide Shut, and he died in the middle of it because he was going to tell the story, and they basically put that whole freaking movie into a wearing blender, and and what's his name? Why he became the guy who did E.T. and Close Encounters, Stephen pasted that thing back together in an unintelligible, and that's why it just kind of was an movie. But Kubrick, was into editing. I mean, he shot everything. Everything was a can. He pretty much had it all done, and he was working on AI. And again, that was going to come out in a way that was going to spill the beans big time. And again, Stephen, sliced and diced and put it in together into this nice little sweet teddy bear of a movie. And Stanley, you look at every movie he did, every one was truth unadulterated, from Lolita to Paths of Glory, Full Metal Jacket, Clockwork Orange. What other movies? What was one of the Roman slaves, with Kirk Douglas? Yep, Tricksters. Yep. Windwalker. Yep. And see the hidden hand or the powers that shouldn't be, they use Hollywood. What is Hollywood but magic? I was explaining this, every magic wand is made from Hollywood. The bush, holly, the holly bush, holly tree. They take that and they make the stick and they put sacred things inside of it, sacred or special or whatever you want to call it. So, transform. Well, okay, that was basically, I was your basic high voltage guy, right? I wired a lot of those transformers, right? And what has happened to our utilities? Thanks to Bill Clinton, thanks Billy Boy, he basically, up until Billy Boy, more than half of all of America's utilities were public. They were owned by the city or the county or, a nonprofit entity like the TVA. And people who worked there were professionals. They had been working on, and they were proud of what they were doing, and they didn't let things mess up. And they did, they kept everything state of the art. And then Billy Boy sliced it up and sold it off to the lowest bidder like Enron. And then Enron sliced it up into the same kind of investment things that destroy the banking thing, those derivatives. And so a good example is this year in the fall, up in Massachusetts, 3 cities exploded. Their gas lines exploded because back in the day of Billy Boy, that public utility was sold to Enron. Enron sliced it up as stock and sold it to investment banks and insurance companies and everything, everybody who had kind of it, right? And then the people who owned it was like thousands of people, not stockholders, but the corporate entities were lots of different folk who never had any experience in utilities, and they hired people of the lowest common denominator, and so one subcontractor would do this and another would do that, and they wouldn't tell each other. They didn't document anything because they did everything slipshod, so they didn't want to tell anybody how screwed up they did it. Oops, oh, well, that would be okay. And then 20 years of that caught up with that utility, and it exploded. To this day, today, almost the New Year's, there's 18,000 people who can't go back to their house because they haven't fixed the gas lines. And that's what happened at Con Edison, right? And you think that, and that transformer is just the tip of the iceberg. About 40 miles up the Hudson River is a thing called Indian Point, the first commercial nuclear power plant, meaning it's been around for 60 years. And it has 60 years worth of highly radioactive spent fuel rods in swimming pools. This is Fukushima to the 10th power, right? And that, place was designed to be shut down in 1968. But they kept pushing the can down until Ronald Reagan, under, mind control of, Herbert Walker Bush, changed the AEC to the point where any reactor can stay working as long as it works. Because once they're going, they're money makers. And there's this thing called the Price-Anderson Act, which guarantees for every dollar the utility spends, they get back 16. And they don't even have to spend their money. That $1 they can take from the ratepayers and make 16 off of it that they didn't even put into it. And that's why, and why did the Price-Anderson Act get passed? Because it's the cheapest way to make weapons-grade plutonium, because it's a byproduct of the fission process of a reactor. And the kicker is, if there is an accident, the Price-Anderson Act guarantees the utility doesn't have to pay a nickel. You can't sue them. The accident over there in Japan has already cost almost $500 billion, and they haven't even fixed it. It's like, the thing that's going to kill the human race is Fukushima, because the radioactivity is across the Pacific. Don't eat any fish coming from the Pacific, kids, or seaweed or anything, right? And I once back in my hitchhiking days and riding the rail days of the 60s and 70s, I took a couple of trips out west, right? And, I'm an electrician. I have my little bag of a few clothes, my hammock, and my side cutters, a knife, a wiggy, a flashlight. And I would go around, and I'd stop in a little town that looked fun, interesting, stay there, go to the, if I could find, that town had a electrical supply shop. I would go in and wait till somebody said, "Oh my God." And I said, "Hey, you got a problem? I can fix it." So that's where I got the nickname Mr. Fix-It. So I traveled up and down the West Coast, like from Mexico all the way up through Alaska. And that whole coast along, like from Seattle up to Alaska, no one was there. And there was no big industry there. And it was like what it was like back in the time of the dinosaurs. Those coasts were unfreaking believable. They had starfish the size of a Volkswagen. They had sea anemones. I mean, it was just, right? With Fukushima, within 2 years of Fukushima, that whole coastline is dead. You go up there today, now, all you see is sand and rocks. There's nothing alive on it anymore. And they don't even they got rid of all the photographs of what that used to look like. And pretty much they've done that to every like all the, I went to Brazil in '88, and they had only destroyed a quarter of the rainforests, right? And the guys went in there and took pictures, and guys like me who are anthropologists went in and went to the natives, blah blah blah, right? Documented everything. Actually, what's his name? Um, One of the Rockefeller kids went there and hooked up into a tribe and never came back. Yep. So, you know, my basic thing about, when I hear people, we have to save the planet. Well, forget about it. Because the planet doesn't need no friggin' saving because it's not on our linear time. We are a blink of the eye of the geologic time. And worse, I mean, frigging asteroid hit this place and obliterated everything, killed everything except the cockroaches, and that's where we came from. So, all humans are is like salt on a potato chip. We're somewhat interesting. Yes, again, why do you think I keep going and breathe and, focus your conscious mind on your breath and now illuminate yourself. And in your imaginary mirror, you shine that light into your Akashic record. And in your Akashic record, you can see everything. And then, oh, look over there. There's the 9 doors. And look at that one open door. That is your sanctuary. That's the other dimension, gang. Right? And these morons are trying to, force their way through it with CERN. You got to be kidding me. Above, so below. Yep. And our bodies are avatars, ugly bags of water, mud puppets. Our true consciousness is in somebody's server somewhere, and that's what the fight is over. Our consciousness is a vessel, just like our avatar is a vessel. Our consciousness is a vessel for souls, timeless souls. And I don't know if you guys watch Chris Carter's X-Files, but, after a 20-year hiatus, they came back a couple years ago and started doing these cute little 8-show things and then waiting a few months and doing another. It was a really good one where, the guys, lone shooter guys, the guy with the long hair and the glasses, he was a really smart one. The guy in the suit, he was the suit. For Nicky, he was like the cute little teddy bear they kept throwing into the blender, and he was like Kenny. He wouldn't die. But, the guy with the long hair who was the freak, he was really smart. Like Albert Einstein, like really smart, like Tesla smart, right? And he had all the information right. He didn't have to look anything up. And he could hack anything. He was the hacker. Anyway, so they died in one of the end of the old X-Files, saving the world. And the powers that be got his consciousness and stuck it into, the computer, right? And they did that, the Germans did that back in the day. Go look at, Captain America, the second one, where him and the Russian girl break into one of DARPA's old Operation Paperclips, and the German scientist who was the Red Masks scientist, he was going to die of cancer, so he stuck himself into, an IBM 360, So pretty much anything you see on J.J. Abrams shows or, Chris Carter shows, that's like what's happening. And they have this nice little special place that the powers that be, because of their magic, king magic, they have to tell the sheeple what's going on. Not what is really happening. I mean, they don't tell them about, love's co-creation. They just feed them the line of their illusion, New World Order, right? So, and I am showing you the 9 doors. We've so far looked at 6. And, the 6 doors that we went through of the wall right there on your right, we 2 of them, I've taken you in the back door through the tree of life. And what is the tree of life? What's fruit there? The fruit of knowledge, right? Exactly. I don't want to live fucking forever, you know? But our consciousness lives forever in the great link, not as this bozo Sensei Al Bob, but as the great link. And as the great link, that's the internal, like, I keep bringing you back to your, you know, um, superconscious mind, where your sanctuary of your own choosing. And I bring you all together and have you meet on your little blankie on the meadow in front of the gazebo, which is just to the east of your little blankie is the lake of the Great Link, and the tree of life, tree of knowledge, tree of what it is. And so by me showing you this gives you the 411. You don't, when you die, you don't have to reincarnate. You can ascend, right? And this has been when I was brought here as a little baby in 1950. And again, if you go to my xratted.blogspot, you will read pretty much all of those stories of what it is. And you don't even need the codus of the thing. You guys are my adepts. You'll get it. You won't. A lot of people have read it and go, "Oh, you just can't spell. Oh, well, your grammar is atrocious. I mean, you haven't used a single period. Everything's no, morons. And what is it when you have a paragraph where all the words are run into each other? I can't even read it. Meaning it's supposed to force you to read it with your higher conscious. Moron. But you guys, you're my adepts. You'll be able to get it. You might have to read it 2 or 3 times. I wrote it in a way that you'd have to read it 6 times to get it, right? That's what my friend who's a publisher, one who said that I was like James Joyce on acid. And he said, "Al, why did you make me read it 6 times?" I said, "Did I make you?" He said, "Yes, you wrote it in such a way that it wasn't until the 6th time that I said, well, what did you get from reading it 6 times? And then he kind of smiled. He goes, "Of course. You made me read it 6 times because if you wrote it in a grammatically correct way, spells everything right, I would just kind of read and go, well, that's interesting. But forcing me to read it 6 times made me go through a shamanic ceremony, and you alchemically heightened my awareness." I said, "Hey, you're not such a dummy as you play to be." And he goes, "Yes, that's why I'm, the third in line here, right?" So anyway. So, where were we? Okay, it's time to breathe deep, gang. It's enough of you. We've been at it for 1 hour and 8 minutes, so I think we got at least 40 minutes to go into state. So, we've gone to the back door of Fairyland, and we've gone to the back door of the Mystic School. So I think the next place to go, so there is death, there is the land of the 8 kings of magic. So there's one more. What was the other one? There's one more. And let's see. You know what? I forgot which other that one more, but I'm going to, whatever that one more is, some of you of the 11 have gone there. The Great Lakes sound like deep space. Yep. Well, the Great Link is, Deep Space Nine, exactly. Where Mogo or the shapeshifter guy used to go into. That's exactly it. Yeah, the guys who did Star Trek, they were right up there with J.J. Abrams and Chris Carter, but more long. The guy who started it off, what was his name? The guy who did the first Star Trek and pretty much laid down the foundation. That guy was part of Operation Paperclip. That guy was at JPL. That guy was at Lawrence Livermore. That guy was at the Rad Lab, and he was not really, and he was a writer. He was. They had him there to like write the story of what was going on, and so he had total access to what was going on. So when he showed the frigging, communicator, that was a fucking flip phone, you know, and the replicator, that was a 3D printer. So that's where that technology already had come from. What was that guy's name? The guy who started Star Trek. Anyway, so he was another patron saint of go, kids, wake up! This is what's going on, And again, he was allowed to do it because the powers that be, or shouldn't be, Roddenberry. Thank you very much. Said, Yep. Council of Nine. Yep. Gene Roddenberry. Yep. So all of these guys were like your Sensei Al Bob, but they were older and could wear a suit better than I did, and they didn't have that little cheeky monkey in them. They had a good portion of okie dokie. They wanted to be successful, they wanted to be famous, they wanted to be remembered, but they still, and they were also, I remember working for Ralph Nader, and I worked on the night program in the 70s, which I was part of Pete Seeger's, sloop, it cleaned the Hudson, right? So me and these two lawyers, and that was, I've worked for lawyers a lot. On a technical side, I would look at trends, at what was. I could read people. I could do the things lawyers couldn't do, but need to have done. Perry Mason, he always had that blonde guy. I was the blonde guy, but that blonde guy was a lot cooler than me. I was still a cheeky monkey. I still the guy who would have the pizza stuck to his shirt. Whatever that guy's name was with the blonde hair, he was like really buff, and all the girls loved him. He probably was gay, but there's nothing wrong with that. A la Jerry Steinfeld. So I was, I've been in enough, of these entities where people like, okay, a good story. I worked as a newspaper photographer in the deep South, in this city called High Point, North Carolina. And I was only there for less than 6 months. And I just went straight through everything because I didn't know you weren't supposed to do this. And I didn't know, there was this restaurant called the Pink Teacup. Everyone ate there. Best food run by this old black grandma. And in High Point, it wasn't like the rest of the South. It was a center, it was this, center of furniture. They had all these factories that were unionized, and everyone got the same pay. So the black guy got paid just like the white guy, and the guys on the floor, factory floor, they were brothers. And they all lived in the same kind of Sears house, and they all drove Buicks. And, yes, the black guys lived on this side of town, but the black guys actually had better schools than the white guys, because all the white guys who had money put their kids in private schools, and the public schools for the white kids were low grade, trailer trash. Black folk, they took control of their schools. Yes, they took the money that the state gave them, but they then dumped a lot of their money. So their schools, their public schools for the black kids, were just on the same quality as the white private schools. And everybody was fine with that, because the powers that shouldn't be in that town, the cracker white dudes, knew that they were making money off those black folk. And, everything that they were doing was making the money. So why mess with a good deal? They didn't need Jim Crow, but you went outside the circle of that city, and there were guys with pointy heads, and they had sheets to match them. So, so it was kind of fun. I always laughed at the guy from Mississippi who wanted to be president who got shot. And he used to call, the instead of liberals, he would go, the boys in D.C. are pointed head intellectuals, right? And I would think, no, the guys who are riding burning crosses are the pointy heads wearing, Anyway, I'm not going to push that one too long. So there I'm in that city, and the first thing I shoot is a lynching in Greensboro, North Carolina. I was like, right? Second thing I shoot was because everybody worked they had money, they had stuff. So Friday, everyone got drunk and had a good time. And this one group of brothers were playing cards in their little hobbit hole. And they got too drunk and they all had shotguns and they went after each other in a room 9x9 with shotguns. It's hard to miss with a shotgun in a room 9x9. And so there were arms over here, heads over here, intestines over there. And I get called, it's summer. I'm like in flip-flops and shorts and a t-shirt. And I show up and there's this, big, like a cow, stereotype police sergeant. He's chewing tobacco and spitting. He's got that little drooly thing there. And he looks at me, he goes, "You're the new guy." And I go, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "Go in my car over there and get the waiters out." Now, the only waiters I knew were guys with trays, So I go there and I open up his trunk. And there are no guys in there with trays, but there was a box with these big rubber boots that went up to here, right? And they were white. And so he goes, "Put those things on." I put them on. They're just kind of like my Carhartt overalls, right? So I put them on, and I take my flip-flops, and the rubber booties go all the way up to here, right? So he goes, "Go in and take pictures." So I go in, and there's blood everywhere, and the smell is unbelievable, and there are flies everywhere, and blood within the first few hours of it being spilled, lots of it, is slicker than snot. And I'm like, I was like ice skating around, man. If I had gone in there in shorts and my t-shirt and flip-flops, whoa, I would have gone up in the air and like rolled around in the blood. And this guy, even though he was the stereotype policeman, he looked at me and I had hair down in the middle of my back. And he looked at me and said, "Okay, I'm going to have to work with this kid. So I won't let this be, something that will traumatize him for life. I'll try and give him the 411." So I go in there, and I've, been a photographer for a good period of time, and I've seen dead people before and took pictures of them, but I was like Ouija, I was like hanging off the side of this, and he goes, no. He goes, "Over there, that stack of those plastic numbers that like you find in a restaurant, pick them up, right? And so start over here, and he points, put a number there, put 1 there, put 2 over there, put 3 over there, put 4 over there." And he like tells me where to put all these numbers. And he goes, "Now take a picture facing that one, this side of that one, that side of the one, the back side of the one, and coming down. And if you can get in front of it, kind of coming up, do that. Though you got to have like 6 different angles of the same thing. And that number has to be in the picture so we can identify it, right?" So I did it. And I did it, he showed me how to do it and told me how to do it, and I did exactly what he said. And then, he says, "When can you have those for me?" I said, "I can go do them right now." He goes, No necessary. Just go over there. There's a hose over in the back of the house. Hose yourself off. Don't get any water on the inside of the waiters, and we'll go for pie." And I go, "Okay." So, I washed his waiters off. I kind of put them back in the box, put my stuff in my little photo bag, and we got in the police car, and he drove me over to the Pink Teacup, which is in the black neighborhood, right? And I had learned pretty quickly this side was the black, this side was white. And we go in there and we're eating, and he's like cracking jokes with all the folk there, and they're really nice to him. He's really nice to them. He introduces me to the lady Mama, who owns the place, and and then he introduces me to everybody, right? And the district attorney's there, and there's the district attorney, my boss, and this is, my captain. And the chief ain't here, and the mayor ain't here, but they usually are. And he goes through the whole social rigmarole, and how to curtsy and bow, and what I'm really expected to do. Not a problem. And then I hear Mama complaining about her refrigerator. And she comes out and she said, "You promised you're going to give me a new refrigerator." And I go, "You got a problem? Let me see." So I go in there, and I don't even have my little tool bag. I get a butter knife, and I open up the little regulator that's like the thermostat of the refrigerator. It's like a little pressure switch, and it's frozen. I mean, this always happens. I've worked on a zillion restaurants. I know exactly what's wrong. So, I unplug it. I bleed the line. I take the little thing apart. The crustiness of all the goop that's been going against this thing for the last 40 years, then take that little part out and put it under hot water, put it back in, put it all back together, close the bleeder valve, plug it back in, and it like works like unbelievable. And it took me all of 10 minutes. She's been complaining, trying to get the refrigerator guy. He comes, he can't figure it out, like for the last 4 years. And she was going to have to spend $2,000 to buy a new one. And I just fixed it. And she goes, "Wow, what's your name? What's your phone number?" Well, I don't have a phone number, but she goes, "Okay, from now on, you eat free here. Just fix things that need to get fixed." I go, "Sounds like a deal to me." And the sergeant looks at me and goes, "Man, you've been here 20 minutes and you got a deal that I've never had for 30 years. And I go, "What can I say?" And so right then, all of those, the captain, the sergeant, the district attorney goes, "Al's okay. He's now made Mama happy, and we're going to be happy because she'll get her food without complaining to us to have it fixed." So that was the first night. First night in High Point. Anyway, so I ate them free food. I didn't have to. It wasn't, and the best food in town was not So I went there, and by about the second week, Mama goes, "Do you have any places to live, son?" I said, "Well, I'm staying on the couch of my boss." He goes, "Well, that's not a proper way." And she takes me upstairs, and there is what had been a speakeasy. Big room and little rooms where girls did things. And, that hasn't been used since speakeasy times, but it's still up there. And, she's got things stored up. "How would you like to live here?" I go, and it had an unbelievable, all the way around. And this was a real Southern building with the columns and everything. And it had this screened in porch all the way around. So you opened up these French doors and the outside was like on the inside. I had a great kitchen, an amazing kitchen downstairs. And she goes, "You clean this up, it's yours. And just keep fixing things for me, not a problem, right? And you don't have a car, do you?" I said, "No, I have the newspaper car, but I can't always use that." She goes, "You can use my car." Right? So I move in, kind of I don't really make a big deal out of it, but I'm living there. And I'm always the first guy for breakfast in that place. The mayor, I'm sitting next to the mayor, chief of police on the other side. Now, I've taken pictures of their family. I know how to ingratiate myself, right? And I'm a really good photographer. I can make you look like a movie star or Frankenstein. I'm really pretty good at that. And capture who you are. And so the mayor really liked me. I took a picture of him. He used it for running for mayor. The chief, he liked me. I kept fixing things in the kitchen, so they were getting their food faster and not getting as many complaints from Mama. So I'm having my breakfast because I'm the first one there. Mayor's on one side, chief of police on the other, and district attorney next to him, and captain, and all the guys who run the place are like on either side of me. The mayor goes, "Al, we heard you're living upstairs." I go, "Yeah, it's a sweet deal." And he goes, "Don't you know you're living in the black neighborhood?" I said, "So?" He goes, "Well," and he didn't want to And like all the black people, mom was like, I'm like this, and he goes, and I cut to the chase. Everybody eats here. I just get to eat here first. And he looked at me and goes, you know, Al, we all love you. But if there were any more of you, we'd have to kill you. And everyone laughed. And my 6 months there was how it was. Because people, I would do things and people would go, it's okay, Al did it. It's okay. And it would make them think about things. It was like you could see their little heads were hurting, you know? And that's one of my little talents is that I make people think about things they don't want to think about, right? And that's why I was a great shrink and why I wasn't a good shrink. Because I went straight to the meat of the matter immediately, not wait 22 years and, built a house and a swimming pool and sent my kids to college on somebody's neuroses. And that's why, people say, man, you're really good at this, but you're not going to make any money. You should do something else. So money was never a question, meaning I didn't need to be rich. I was already rich in my experience of my life. And I always had whatever I needed, right? Right now, though, my life is more on a razor's edge than it normally is. And I do need a little assistance, So whatever you want to gift me, please do it so and mail it to my P.O. Box 1165, Vinton, Virginia, Vinton, Virginia 24179. Or send it off, to Roanoke, Virginia, ADMARTINO, and go on the Dude Awake 42 Gmail and say, hey, I just sent you some money over Western Union and this is the code number. And I can go down to Western Union and show my driver's license with that code number. Because I got $23 to last me until I get my next Social Security thing, which is like a week and a half or 2 weeks from now. And right now, tonight I'm safe, but who knows whether John will, there is no guarantee. Now, all of last year, last two, the first time he had me go bye-bye, we made a video of where I played Donnie Chump, and I wore a Donnie Chump wig and hi, I'm Donnie Chump, and it's 2030, and all white people are dead. I'm the last white man. Everyone's black or Hispanic, a person of color, and I did that, and I went on and on and on about that, and basically dropped a lot of strangeness into that character. And it wasn't a live chat. Johnny took it and edited it into something great because he did a Fox banner, breaking news. And John is truly gifted at his. I want him to do. I had lots of friends who did voiceovers and made a really good living, and for some reason he won't do any of that. So, but he did the voice of Brokaw. And he was like the news guy, breaking news. And it was frigging amazing, hilarious. And so about 3 weeks after we did that, the election was in November and Donald Trump won. And Johnny thought that our video was the reason Donnie won. And he was all freaked out, right, anxious that, they were going to come and get him. And it was my fault. So I had to go. And it was the couple days after, November 10th or 11th. That was the first time I was thrown under the bus. And it came out of the blue, meaning we were doing great together. Everything was great, fine. He was doing great. Just, at 7 in the morning, boom, 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 get out. And he was like, there was no placating. Okay. So I threw a few things in my car and drove down. Now, I was working for a number of churches as the action coordinator, community coordinator And I was doing a job that I normally would get paid maybe $70,000 a year for, and I was doing it free because I was really sick, had nothing to do, and I said, "Well, I'm going to double down," because I knew I was going to be leaving this neck of the woods, and just like leaving New York, I basically said, "I'm going to do everything I can do in this town, so when I leave, it'll be sun, just like I did in New York, just like I did in Cornell, just like I did in." Good old Asheville, North Carolina. So anyway, I went and slept in this church I had the keys for, and I was very down on the low, meaning I made sure. Anyway, Feng Shui, exactly. Gene Roddenberry. Am I still connected to you guys? Or did I buffer out into the hinterlands? Because I'll keep blabbering on, and I already went past the point where I wanted to take us into state. Has anyone left? Yep. Okay, I'm still here, right? Okay, good. So anyway, bottom line is, John Birmingham is a good guy. John Birmingham, is a talented guy. But like many good, talented folk, he focuses on things that don't need to be focused on. He lets all of that brouhaha of the hidden hand, powers that shouldn't be, blah blah blah, get a hold of him. And in the you've seen it. I don't have to tell you. And that is what's got me. I'm at that. He's thrown me out 26 different times. But every time, some new adventure comes up. Now, I am at a point where I'm ready to, I don't want to stick around here for the winter. This is not, a good place to be in the winter. And I want to go someplace warm. And I have a friend or two who, if I can get myself there, I can stay there, and then we can do something. I want to do something different. I'm a guy who does something. I'm in good health, as good a health as I'm going to be at this moment anyway. My endocrinologist says I'm the healthiest dead guy he knows. My podiatrist and my bone doctor say I don't even know how you walk. So I'm in pretty good shape. Yes. Caffeine, nicotine, crack cocaine, methamphetamines, heroin, opium, methadone, these are all the same alkaloid. Sugar, alcohol, white flour, they're the same addictive substance. And it goes into our little brain receptors and it turns us into a mongoloid monkey meat puppet, right? No matter how sweet or nice or intelligent we may be, or talented. The only way you can use those gifts is in love's co-creation. Only way. You can't do it through ego. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be the meanest. I'm going to be, blah, 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 blah. No. Sorry. You'll be used, chewed up, and spat out. You go into the wearing blender of the satanic meat puppet, Hollywood. That's why I never, I've been to California a few times, and it's really beautiful here and there, but ooh, it's where Satan gets a tan. What do you think he got so red? Anyway, how you like my tan? Right? It's artificial. It's lighting. I make the lighting a little interesting with just a few Christmas ornaments that I bought for nothing. Okay, don't have a boat. Red ink, where are you? Australia or New Zealand? Where are you? England? Scotland? Where are you? So talking about the lights are great. So I'm just going to run through a number of things that you guys brought up. The thing that happened in New York, was just bad maintenance. I've been around transformers that have blown like that, right? And I've been in New York when transformers have blown like that and lit up the sky like that. It's just that everyone's got a cell phone, and the powers that be want everyone to have in their mind, because the next red flag is going to be an invasion from outer space. Right? You live in Tipperary. I love Tipperary. Ireland is actually my number one home. You know, Tipperary is not too far from where the old crone lives. Tipperary is kind of up in the hills, right, and along the west coast, and not too far from Skibbereen. Correct? Am I remembering this correct? You're on the west side, right? Yep, Skibbereen's 2 hours away. So I was in Glendore, which was a little town to the, you know, going towards Galway, whatever direction that is, and what is that, east? No, not east, it'd probably be north, right? Galway would be north of Skibbereen. So I was in this little town called Glendore, which was unbelievably bucolic. And now that was a place I could have stayed. My girlfriend really wanted me to marry her. She was the town doctor. And I was, she made me the town shrink. And they would have paid those people like, how back in the 80s, before England joined the EU, they didn't know what they had. They gave up their soul for a few, coin, right? Anyway, so and to be sucked up by Google and Microsoft, anyway, and Apple. But I was there in '87, and this town was amazing because it's a little fishing town, maybe 400, and she was the doctor, and my mentor Archie. We had gone up and down the West Coast a number of times. In 88, 87, 88 was the last time I was in Ireland before 2005. But that was the last time Sensei Al Bob was there, and Archie was there. And it was our last trip up the West Coast looking for pyramids. And it was like, the last tour of the Rolling Stone, right? I mean, we had done it 4 or 5 times. We had made great friends, and he had bought himself a little house in Glendore, and he had the big castle in Scotland. He was an earl in Scotland. And he wanted me to show up, and had no electricity, had no running water, so he wanted me to fix it up. And what he really wanted me is to hook me up with this lady, this doctor, and because he wanted me to stay there, marry her, and make her happy, because he treated her like his daughter. And so anyway, that all came true, and I was there for 4 months, and she really, 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 really wanted to marry me. And she was really great. She was brilliant, smart, hot, beautiful, all the above, and she had 2 kids. Now, that's why she didn't have any boyfriends, because she had 2 kids. It's like radioactive, right? But her 2 kids were wild, because when she was in medical school, her boyfriend at the time was a king from Africa, or a prince. And they were going together. She got knocked up, and he split, and she had the baby. And this kid was like a prince. He was noble. He was, he had the right DNA. He was like unbelievable. He looked like he was a smart Obama. And so her sister, because they both came from London and not the best of families, her sister did everything she did, but how there was Bizarro Superman. Well, my girlfriend's sister did everything in the Bizarro world. So instead of getting knocked up by an African prince, she got knocked up by a Jamaican gangster, right? Then, after the kid was about a year and a half, she came to visit her sister, left the kid there, and left, never to be seen again. So this woman brought up these 2 boys, and her son was about oh, 8, 9 months older than his cousin, and they grew up from that point on. When the kid showed up, her son was about 2, and his cousin was about almost a year. And so when I showed up, her son was about 7, and his cousin was about 6. And so her son was noble and brilliant and just and never lied, never cheated. And his cousin, I took them. So these kids, none of these kids. So there's this town, right? All these, nobody gets married. These women have children with about 10 different guys, and there's only so many guys here. So all these kids look like that guy and this guy and this guy, and everyone's on the dole. And the guys are fishermen and they make money, and since they're not married, they don't have to. The women are on the dole, the guys are making money, they have a house, and they keep. It's like musical chairs, right? And every Friday night they have a party at one of their houses, and it's like one of my parties. It's like off the friggin' hook. They're playing music and drinking poutine and smoking bud, and because everyone's growing it there, and it was just like off the hook. And there was all of these German intellectual guys who thought the world was going to come an end, and the west coast of Ireland is the best place to be in Europe in a nuclear war because the wind comes from Mexico. So the wind has to come all the way across the Atlantic to hit Ireland. And the West Coast is like being in Mexico. It's the Gulf of Mexico hitting it, and it's got palm trees, and the ring of Kerry is really toasty, right? Right, Mr. Tipperary, right? I'm telling the 411 of the West Coast. Anyway, I was the dude. I was the shrink. I was the social worker. And that doctor girl and me, we made this dynamic duo. And these 2 kids were like off the hook. Now, if I was smart, I would have married that girl and stayed there to this day. But I would not be Sensei Al Bob talking to you right now. I'd be, Dr. Owl, with a PhD and an MD and every other kind of degree. Because I was locked in. Archie, I could have gone to school for the rest of my freaking life at Trinity. And I could have been dean of that place. But I didn't. I kind of basically wouldn't be talked into getting married. And she really wanted to get married. She didn't want to be that single woman with 2 kids, right? And I was the only guy who treated her not, everyone treated her with reference and respect because she was the doctor of the freaking county almost. And, but nobody would date her. No one would take her out. Everyone was nice. Everyone gave her stuff and would dance with her and stuff. But, she didn't have a boyfriend. And that's why Archie, he said, well, this will work. And it did. We really hit it off. We really sparked. We really had a great time. I really loosened her up so she wasn't as, controlling as she could have been because she was a Cancer and an Aries and a Virgo. She was like, wow. But I loosened her up. We had a great time. We never argued because I always did exactly what she wanted before she knew what she wanted. And somebody was talking to me about, oh, you speak so well of women. They're not all that way. Okay, please. Guys and girls are what are known as human beings. They're basically the same model, except with a little different plumbing. That's about it. We both start out as the same thing in our mother's womb. 6 weeks, we get that blast of hormones, and we're either a chick or a guy or somewhere in between, right? That's where gay people come from. That's where transsexuals come from. That's where the LGBT fruit ball comes from. And I had a lot of, I worked in the theater in New York, and a lot of my gay friends call themselves fruits. So you got to have a sense of humor, gang, And everybody who wants to be, LGBT or Black Matters or Me Too, all you're doing is separating. We're all friggin' humans, And we're not even that. We are consciousness. We're all members of the Great Link. We're all here to co-create with love. And unless you're doing that, sorry, gang. you know. My inner Leo just cringed. Well, I'm an Aquarian. I can deal with almost anything, you know. I can deal with, please, look what I'm dealing with, you know. I can deal with anything. And I have a pretty good sense of humor, and I don't give a frick about anything. All I really care about is that I can make people happy. And if I can't, well, so much, you know, I tried my best, you know. On to the next. Like I say, I have plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way up to 20, right? Why marry? Oh, so where should we go? We still, let's see, it's 1 hour and 46 minutes. Yeah, we got a good 30, 40 minutes. Where does anyone want to go? So, how about, oh, so there's one door that we went through, but I can't remember what it was. You know, it wasn't death, it wasn't the fairyland, it wasn't the mystic school, it wasn't the eight kings of magic. There's one more, right? And let's talk moon landing. Well, like I said, the Nazis got there in 38. You know, and there were, oh, you know, first off, you have to realize that the moon is actually the frigging Death Star. It is an artificial device. It's not, you know, a rock. You know, it's hollow on the inside. You know, the Apollo guys, not the guys themselves, but somebody within the pretend world of the Apollo thing, left all kinds of instruments there, right? And they left a lot of the magnometers and all kinds of things that measure magnetic frequency and EMF and vibration, you know, the thing that says whether you're having an earthquake. And they have them on lots of different zones of the moon. And so every time, you know, a lot of times we send off rockets and the booster kind of crashes into the moon because we don't give it fuel to turn around. You know, if it's like going in a certain directory and it's not going to be captured by Earth's gravity and brought back, it crashes into something out there, right? And a lot of that stuff hits the moon, and a lot of big things have hit it. And people like JPL used to farm out all that data to lots of different universities. And when I was at Cornell, they had a laboratory, you know, they got moon rocks, they had a whole bunch of stuff. They were doing a lot of crazy things there. And so I was hanging, and that's the guys I hung out with at, even though I was a social scientist, I was an anthropologist, I hung out with the engineer guys. They were more fun. They had lots of fun toys, and they definitely turned out some serious mind-altering substances. So, bottom line, was I hung out with those guys. Anyway, I was in one of those labs, and they were looking at the data that was coming back from the moon, and a gigantic booster smashed into the moon. And we were looking at it, and it rang like a bell. And mathematically, they could figure out how thick the crust is and how much the center was hollow. And the center was hollow by 94%. You know, only 6% was the crustiness. And because the bell ringing kind of bounced around, they could tell mathematically that there were things inside the hollow part. It wasn't just a gigantic cavern. There were like things, and they could almost map out, like, oh, look, there's 7,000 floors in there, and it was like, whoa. And so we're like fooling around with that stuff, you know, and smoking some bud. And then these guys in suits came in and said, you've been, you know, monitoring a, you know, extremely, you know, secret thing, and we're going to have to take you all out of here and, you know, de-gauze you and you know, stick probes up your butt and have you sign your life away. And when I saw in the window these guys coming up to the building, I was out the door before they even got to the front door of the building. And, a couple days later, half the guys weren't even there anymore. And the few that were there, they said, Al, you don't want to know. I can't talk. You were the smart one. You got out of there. I saw the door closing behind you, wondering what the heck. And I should have followed right behind, but I didn't. And this will be the last conversation we ever have. I'm going to be sent to, Area 51 tomorrow. So, it's like, okay. And that was Cornell. It was the home ground of DARPA and everything, military, industrial, banking, education, media. That was one of the hubs, Cornell. The other was Brookhaven National Laboratories, another hub. But those were all for another thing. So that's my little take on the moon. Nazis showed up in 38. We've been there ever since. The secret space program, Joseph P. Farrell, Richard, what's his name? It starts with a D. In the UFO world and all of the disclosure guys, there's some really interesting guys. Dolan is the guy's name. Yep, Dolan. Thank you. He's very good because he's a real scholar and started not out in this stuff, but he was a historian, so he has this kind of reference point. And then he kept seeing all of these things, and his father was a really amazing, honorable guy and was kind of mixed up in this on the very peripheral. And he's kind of, as a young man and then as an early scholar, he kept seeing these shadows of things. And then when he was, studying something that he was, scholarly doing and assigned and being paid for by he stumbled on some, what the fuck is this? And he's an honorable guy. So he said, well, this is stuff that, it really is, meaning the lie of everything. He basically stumbled right into the lie of everything. And another guy named Jim Mars, who wrote the book that the movie JFK was based on. And all of his books are amazing. He's another great scholar. But he's a good old boy, Texan, always wears his black fedora. I mean, he's really, and I met him a number of really great guys. I used to be in that scene, and I left it because it was like high school. There was a handful of people who were righteous and loads of fun, like Linda Moulton Howe, Bill, the guy who wrote, Behold the Pale Horse, another guy named Joseph P. Farrell, a woman named Catherine Austin Fitz, and then there's this big guy who looks like Claude Rains from the 30s, and he's kind of a historian, economist, and he's all about maritime law. I mean, he's a legal genius. He's a constitutional, brilliant historian, scholar, and and all these folks are brilliant scholars and don't give a frick about anything except truth, right? And they're loads of fun. They got great sense of humor. They don't take themselves seriously. And if everybody in that community, I'd still be part of that community. But I had other things to do, and nobody wanted to do what I wanted to do. I mean, I talked about this. I gave a speech at the UN at this conference of, alternative technologies at this NGO that I was part of. And I basically said the whole story about what I've just said to you. And that was 1984, before any of those guys even got involved. The only guy who was even close to involved in that was Preston Nichols, Al Bielek. I mean, I was of that generation. And they just were so fried. They had been mind altered. And I went along for the ride up to a point. And again, when the guys with the suits were coming in, I went, like the girl who runs DARPA now, who was the president of Google, or she ran DARPA, then became president of Google, and she's, she looks like that character out of Indiana Jones, the last one, where they were looking for the crystal hairs, and there was the girl with the sword. She looked like that, and she's on a lot of YouTubes about artificial intelligence, and she's got the smart tattoo, and she's telling everyone, oh man, it'll be great when we're all transhuman. That girl was a handler of this group of wacko people like Preston Nichols and Al Bielek and Duncan and a few others. And I was along for the ride because I have this amazing talent of being involved with lots of different people and seeing stuff. And I'm like Oppenheimer, meaning he wasn't the smartest pencil in the box. He wasn't the greatest physicist, but he could throw a great party. He could get all the kids to play nice in the sandbox. That's how they got the gadget. Not, anything other than that. And Groves was he was a good scrounge. He could get them anything they wanted on time and on budget. That was Groves' really amazing talent. He was like Milo Mindbender in Catch 22, but he had 2 stars. So I have this knack of being just in the right place and just the right time and know not to fight City Hall and to get out of Dodge way before anybody else, right? So that, and to be in that, meaning I will only get involved if I can do good. If I can make, and be that whatever little cog or thing that needs to be done to make it to happen, I'll go. I'll do it. I'll be of service. But to be famous or to be remembered or be a hero or any of that crap, not really. And I'm not really in it unless it's going to make people smile and we're going to dance and eat really good food and not worry about the shit that we can't do anything about, but only focus on the things that will, you always succeed if you don't give up. And I'm only involved in things that are going to succeed. Now I'm in it, I'm a guy who loves to do seed camp. I love to seed the field. And, if it turns out we're going to have a good crop, I'm there to pick it, and then share it with all my relations. But if it's just going to be a dead field, why beat a dead horse, right? So anyway, okay, we're almost at 2 hours. So is everyone up for another 20 minutes of a little trip into our Akashic record and to go to our, yes, the moon landing faked itself. Very good. I like that analogy. Meaning it happened, but not the way they say it happened. It's like my writing. I basically say that a lot. This is based on what happened, but kind of happened, almost happened, But that's, yes, did the moon landing fake itself? Very good. I like that. That's very, very good, right? Because like I said, the Nazis got there in 1938. So we did land. That's some trick. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And if you ever looked at all of the guys who allegedly went to the moon, they're all alcoholics. They're all, taking a lot of psychoactive drugs. They're all like clowns. They're like the clowns, when they stick 22 clowns into a Volkswagen and they all get out, right? That are the Apollo astronauts that went to the moon. They weren't like Buck Rogers. They weren't the real guys going out there in the secret space fleet. They, Solar Warden got started in 1947 with MJ-12. That's why Forrestal was thrown out the fracking window. That's why JFK got to be president, because his daddy was a gangster, and he was the same kind of gangster that Prescott Bush was, and meaning a treasonous gangster, and he, his older brother Joe, who was supposed to be president, died in the bomber or some other reason, just like Poor John got offed in his airplane because Hillary Clinton had to be senator. You know, he was going to run for that, and he would have won in a flash. But he was going to do it in New York. That's where he lived. You know, unlike Hillary, he actually lived in New York since he was a teenager. And he was going to be New York senator. He would have won in a flash, and he would have been president, and that's why he got offed. You know, and that's why I don't do that kind of stuff. You know, because man, they can't off me until it's time for me to go. So I'm ready for a job, guys. Hey, I'm living on $300-400 a month. You know, being here where I shouldn't be, and you know what I need to be is, you know, win the lottery, have $500 million, and dump it into Humanities Artist Trust / the Institute for Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technology / you know, the Traveling Video Art Circus / you know, the Freely Inquiring Society, right? And to remake the body politic of our country, meaning you guys are already geoengineering it. You know, you don't need to kill everybody. It's bad for the business plan, you know? What you need is a new branding, rebranding, just like the Roman pagans did at the, you know, Council on Mysia back in year 9, right? And because, meaning, guys, you be stuck here in your lower 4 chakras, you know, we can take this whole thing up about 2 or 3 notches, you know, kind of where Gene Roddenberry wanted, you know, you know, the alliance, what do they call it, the foundation of planets, or whatever you want to call it, you know. But it has to, if you really want to rebrand it, retool it, really is what you're doing, not just rebranding it. You know, it's way past just being rebranded. You can't have another red flag. You can't have another war. You need to retool the whole freaking thing. And the only way you can do that is through we need an alternative aesthetic to commerce. Right? And we got, you know, the cadre right here. We got 227. That's all is needed. It's a waste of time. John's a waste of time. The school is a waste of time. I mean, come, if you want a school, come to the Big Green where I am, because I'm in heaven. I'm in the Garden of Eden. It is the most energetic. This place is dead. Meaning, Christmas, when I was the only one here, you know, basically, Sweet Puppy came to me and said, I've already left. This is just, you know, my last hurrah with you. This place is gone. All the trees are dead. Everything is dead here. Go back about 30 or 40 videos when I drive up from the county road, you know, when I come up the roads, and then I come up our 2-mile long driveway. And when George put the road in for the real time, instead of us going through, you know, goat paths, he had a guy with a big bulldozer, a D6, who just cut into the sides, and he didn't like sculpt or he just cut right in. So there's at least a third of the road of the 2.5 miles up to the school, which is basically like a riverbed, because it rains real hard up here and it goes downhill and it's really steep. But it's all stone, so it doesn't wash it out, right? But it's a real mess most of the time. We've had a guy come a few months ago and did the best job that anyone has done in the last 18 years. And actually, he was the same guy who cut it in. But anyway, I digress. Where he cut it into the side of the hill, you can see all the roots of the forest, and you can see how a forest works. You can see all of the roots of all the different trees coming together and clinging around each other, and then you see all of the fungi that's in there. That is the thing. It's like our human, we have the skin, and then we have the fascia, and then the muscles, and then the tendons, and then the bones. Well, it's the same thing in the forest. And where this bulldozer has cut into the road, and it's about 4 foot thick, and I did, when I was doing, Woodstock, I did a video out in the woods saying the stock of the woods, right? And I showed the woods, and I showed, yes, even though these trees are here, and even though they have leaves, they're dead. Because I showed the root system that's dead. The earth itself is dead. It used to be, when I first got here, it was unbelievable loam. It was like Ireland. But one of the connective tissues of why this place stayed alive was Inga. When she died, that was it. And then the people who were here didn't carry on that spirit. And then I got, and I wasn't here all the time. I would only, after Inga wasn't here, I'd only be here 4 or 5 weeks of the year. And it became my warehouse, not my school. And I tried to do the school here, and everyone was a moron. Meaning no one would do the work, And that's what's needed, not, you've got to do the work. And you guys are doing the work, right? I can tell by your but, it's pretty much 20 of the same people who come to the chats and discourse. Now, the other 210, I can tell that they're reading it because they contact me on my Gmail, but they're not doing the work per se. And, you guys have to step up a little more. You really have to do this every day. And why do you think I do 2 of these a day? To augment you guys to get into state, to naturally go there, right? And all of these talks, like the 2 hours and 7 minutes I've been talking, you've been in state. Right? Even though I didn't go and breathe, you're already doing that. And I want you to do that consciously yourself without me doing this. I'm always there for you, meaning even when we're not on the screen, I am there, because I am your sensei, Al Bob. I've had enough into this. So forget this place. This is like, please. It is deader than a doornail. Now, you want to come to where I am in Tennessee, and I am right between. I am 30 miles to App State in Boone, North Carolina, and I am 20 miles to ETSU in Tennessee. Those are 2 amazing institutions with amazing resources, an amazing group of teachers and students who want to be awake, who want to be awakened, but they're so sucked into, skateboarding and having the right shoes, but they're not as neurotic as the people. It's not just John who's that way. Everyone on this hill is that way. And the only reason I haven't is because I'm in, shamanic connection with the spirit of the ley lines here. And I've been the nourishing alpha dog. And this Christmas, when I was here, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and it was beautiful and sunny. There were 2 perfect days, right? And I basically spent those 48 hours in commune with the non-linear time of the spirit of the Cherokee, as this is their most sacred place. And all of the spirit guides, all thousands of them, came to me in the puppy dog. And basically, sat in my lap and licked my face and said, we love you, love you, and we love what you're doing, and keep it up, but, we're no longer here. Now these ley lines are here, so that, current, but the power's not here, right? So forget this and forget John. It was just, forget it. People are going to throw me out and can't find any, you're costing me money. Really? Yes. I like, let's go there. I mean, there are loads of Findhorn would be a fun place to go to. One of the problems, I talked about my days in Cornell with Burton, right? And he had a commune called Wisdom's Goldenrod. The guy who wrote The Wisdom of the Overself, Robert Burton. And I had met him a number of times at NYU, at the New School, but by the time I hit Cornell, he was gone. But his students, his cadre was still there, and they didn't leave. They loved the Finger Lakes. They started a commune. It was a brilliant place. If that place is still still there, that would be a good place to go. That place, because there's so much water. All those Finger Lakes. There's Trumansburg Waterfall. Now, it has changed a great deal. That's why it's good to go someplace where no one has been, That really is. Meaning there's people, lament, oh, Soho's gone, New Tribeca, all of that. Well, they were then when they were then. There's always someplace amazing. That's why I bought the school. When I ran into Olga and we reestablished our friendship, and, she said, you need to buy that school. And I went up there and I said, you're right, I need to buy the school. I was making a lot of money. I had them cash. She needed it. I gave it to her. Not a problem. But all of the things I thought I could do here just couldn't happen because of the energetics of everything around it, of the city of Roanoke, the city of Salem and Vinton and the valley and all the people here. There's great resources, great people, great everything, but nothing happens. There's a form of inertia here that everyone here has got their anchor out and they're just, burning up their motors, and John Birmingham, grew up here. And that's why he is the way he is. And there's, he's 41 years old. 41 years of having your anchor like that. It'll take another 41 years to get him back to zero. So, no, this place is not even, no. But the deep green, yes, you want to come there. Or any place else. Let's go to Ireland, Or Canada. There are a lot of interesting Canadians in the cadre, There are a lot of interesting, there's some interesting people in Czechoslovakia and Lithuania and countries like that who have been oppressed know what freedom, is worth living and fighting for, Poor Russia, that was it is a great people, it is a great place, but just their location and their 1,500 years of, you think, black people have been enslaved. The best slaves to have are ones who think they're free. Planet Choice. Let's see. Mike. Only of Choice is my book recommendation. Communications from the Council of Nine, revealing K and 24 civilizations are the forefront of. Yes, exactly. I like that book too. Thank you, Jamie. Ron Berry Connection, Anglo-Canadians. But yes, but Canadians are like special, meaning they're not quite English, they're not quite American, they're not, they've had the same kind of, there's many different nationalities went to Canada, came to America, just not as many, right? And one of Canada's saving graces is that they have what's the right word, a natural predilection to be honest and generous. And they have a humility and, what's the right word? They have manners, except when they get drunk and they're talking about hockey. Those two things can get in their way of that humility and and graciousness. But other than that, I like them as a people. And they're quite cultured because, they're French and they're English and they're everything else. I love Toronto. I love Montreal. Get thumb off of Mike. Okay. How about now? I was going to wear my little headset, but I didn't, so better now. Okay. Yeah, I forget these things. I get into telling the story, and I'm not techno neurotic, so I do my best, gang. I do my best. And again, I need some help here. I had not a clue, and I mean, I just learned how to go through my email because I was expecting some of you guys to say, "Hey, there's some money on your way" on my email, and I was going, I haven't had any emails since December 24th, so I knew something was wrong. And then somebody called me up and said, "Oh, this is how you look at your spam. Look at this, look at that." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I did, and yes. And yet, too bad, no. So, but I have lived this long on, I'm like Blanche Bouvier, living on the kindness of the universe, not strangers, the universe. Always takes care of me. I haven't really cleaned out my car yet. I'm sure I'll find, some money in there. I always do. Whatever I need, I just have to clean out sections. There's the North 40 over there, and anyway, so we're now in 2 hours and 16 minutes and 46 seconds. So, have any of you noticed how time has sped up and slowed down, gone sideways, stopped? In this little session here. Yep. Oh, so books are fun, but I've had friends who I have 100,000 books. I had about 5,000. I just got rid. I have a friend who sells them on eBay, and I just hadn't taken them away. And I said, whenever you sell them, whenever you got money, just send me some money, right? So that's what he did. Because I knew they'd all find another home. Yes. So I think we have a few moments because this is going to be an exercise. We're going to go quickly into our open door of our superconscious mind, of our sanctuary, of our choosings. Okay, not going to do the whole full Monty. We're just going to go there, right? I'm going to say, okay, so we're going to go there, go to the meadow, go over to the tree of life next to the lake of the link, and we're going to find another sliver. And this sliver is not going to be any of the doors that we've gone through. This sliver is going to be an interesting mix, an alchemical mix of all of you, all 11, and you will alchemically create a door that will give, just like the 9 seasons on 25 years condensed in one book. Well, you won't need a book, not even your Akashic record. Okay? How many of you guys have been using the Akashic record to get perspective, even on the angst that you've been putting in there? Which would be the logical thing. I want a better life. I want to be more, well-rounded. I want to be leveled. I want to be awake so I can ascend. You might use these tools I'm giving to you. And I know you are, but I want you to use them, right? And I want you to use them being awake. Okay? So, that's what this little sliver is going to be. You know how, like in your computer, you have a shortcut? This is like, you close your eyes, bingo, you're going to be at this sliver, right? Of a world of your own creation, which will give you the shortcut to all that information that will be in context always with love's co-creation. Helps get rid of the anxiety. Yep. Okay, here we go. So, everyone in a comfortable position, all 9 of you. So, breathe deep, in that 20%, and then out. With that breath, you're illuminating yourself with the prana and grounding yourself in your chi, taking that light into your imaginary mirror and shining it into your library of your Akashic record. You're sitting down at your reading table. The librarian brings you your book. You open it up. You lean both hands right onto the right page, left on the left page, and you basically empty all of your anger, angst, hate, self-loathing into those pages. And then you close the book. Boom. And you feel light and airy. And you walk over and through the open doorway to the bridge of your id into your superconscious mind, and you're stepping down now into your sanctuary of your own choosing, and you're walking over to the meadow, and you're lying down on your little blankie with your basket of goodies, and you lie down, and the light from above warms you up, and you kind of just puddle with everyone there, everyone's consciousness. You are in everyone's, all of your relations, all the cadre. You are connected in the great link. And now, as one consciousness of love's co-creation, you walk over to the tree of life, and you look down with your telescope eye into the third sliver. See it clearly. And there is a pink golden light coming up from that sliver. And there is a greenish froth that is crawling up your feet and covering your consciousness and protectiveness. And you are sliding down that sliver into this conscious world. That is your shortcut to seeing your dreamy dreamland. See it clearly. And now it's 2222, a good synchronistic moment, and I'm going to be quiet. You're going to have a nice 2-week vacation, and then when I speak again, you will speak on the chat of your experience in very vivid detail. You will see guides, you will see things, you will have understandings that will connect your consciousness to being awake. So you will not let yourself slip into unconsciousness. We all do it every day, but if we do it too much, we will end up like John. Now, not really, because that's never going to happen to you guys, because you're my cadre. John, I've tried. He's never going to be it. And a good portion of the human race is never going to be it. And that's very disappointing to me, And that's why I don't give a frack about it, We're not going to save this planet because it doesn't need saving. What we do need is to have our cadre, all our relations, to wake up so we can ascend into a higher harmonic and keep humanity, not Homo chump sapien alive, but that creature that is the artist in the first person that lives to co-create with love. See it clearly. I'm going to be quiet now. 225, 23, 24, 25. And you were in the sanctuary of the little sliver of the shortcut to you always being conscious, awake. You are awake now, and you're not falling asleep. You can go into dreamland, you can go into dream time, but you're not going to let your consciousness go unconscious. You're not going to get suckered into the meat puppet illusion. From this point on, you are awake. You are the nine. Do 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 do. You are the nine. The nine of all your relations. The nine of the cadre. You are going to walk forth into your life wherever you are, and every day in every way you're going to wake up other people. Whether it's on the line at the supermarket or the post office or the bus or at work or, hanging out at a bar, you are going to be the person that is not going to have to show their ego, but through your example of who and what you are, awake. Just like when Buddha was on the side of the road and the traveler was going and was like blinded by Buddha's illumination, just like you do, through his breath. And he goes over, "Oh, well, man, are you God?" And Buddha goes, "No." "Well, what are you? What are you?" And Buddha's reply is, "I'm awake." And that's you nine. That's where you are right now. You are awake. You are in that sliver of consciousness where you are awake. You are no longer going to go to sleep. Sorry. You can go to be relaxed. You can go to dream time. You can go to dreamland. But you can't go to sleep. Sleep was an illusion. Sleep is like what happened to Snow White when the evil witch gave her that apple. Why do you think Apple Computer has the picture of the apple with a bite in it? Who do you think Snow White was? But Eve. And Eve was not, she is not the first sinner. Sorry, not so much. She just wanted to be awake. And she, was, dealt with by a used car salesman, snake oil salesman. Why do they call it snake oil? It's that black stuff, like Chris Carter, the alien thing that's like eating at humanity's soul is that black oil, that kind of crawls up your toes, and then you're lost when it's crawling through the whites of your eyes. That's not ever going to happen to you. Nine, you're awake. It is now your job. I will assist you. I am your sensei Al-Bab, always here to serve, make you happy, make the whole cadre happy, all our relations happy, all of the great link. I go swimming in it, I'm swimming in it 24/7. And so are you. You're just now being awakened to it. That's what that little sliver is. So, that's the doorway of being awake. And within all the doors that you have seen, there is a place in that land where there are your cadre. From that land, there are fairies there that are your cadre, who are awake. They are all your relations. There are your cadre in the land of the 8 kings of magic. There are elementals there who are your cadre. They are awake. In the land of the school of mysticism, there are elementals there who are awake, like the little puppy dog. but there's not much left of awakeness in this valley. It has been murdered. The ghosts are here, and there are certain elementals that are holding their space, but they're not able to co-create with love's co-creation, and they're not able, they can just hold. They're navigating. Their anchor isn't set, and they're dragging, but they're holding that energy, and that's a noble task. But to move forward, you have to do more than hold the space. You have to ascend. Don't fight City Hall, right? So, you 9, you're awake. So let's hear something from you. Let's hear some chatting. Okay, let's see. Slide down. Time slowed down for me, says Jamie. Tony Kibb, same. Feels like midnight, but it's only 9. Jamie, 2, yes, well, you're in Ireland or someplace like that. Esoteric Dragon helps get rid of anxiety. Yep. That's what being awake does, gang. It keeps you from getting anxious because you're not worrying about shit that doesn't matter. Awake and dreaming at the same time. That's right, Jamie. Because dreaming isn't being asleep, it's ascending. Truing the intuition. Right. When you're awake, you can tell what's right and what's false and what's love's co-creation. Distance was separated like a pattern of a fingerprint, many layers, energy materialized. Okay, that's good, G. And what you're seeing is that the element of separation is more than distance. It's a non-existent thing. Because you're seeing the energy of love's co-creation be materializing, becoming real. No longer that dreamy dream. It's real. And being awake is bringing your dream into reality. That's what all the great, Tesla, Madame Curie, Dante, all of the greats, Melville, Dickens, Sartre, all the philosophers, Socrates. There's a woman named, she was, back in the day of the 9th century, the smartest people on earth were women, because the earls and the dukes, they wanted their daughters to marry kings. And the kings were looking for a wife who was smarter than they were, right? So all of the dukes and earls put their money into educating not their sons, but their daughters. And there was a French woman whose father was the architect of the great French, big cathedral. And so she learned architecture and math and trigonometry and Latin and Greek and Sumerian and Egyptian and you name it, she learned it. And she wrote a book that was a little treatise, and she took her knowledge of architecture and she used it as a metaphor to describe theology in the most brilliant of nonlinear ways. And, my books are scattered all over North America. So I had like 3 or 4 books. That was one of the ones I would, had underlined and written in the sides. When I was a freshman, I was learned at when I went to prep school at Winchington. I had Mr. Elfring, Mr. Buchar, and what was her name? This really gorgeous mathematician woman, and two other, and then there was two guys who were like the administrator guys, and one guy was in the OSS slash State Department, and the other guy was a Marine sergeant, but he was a scholar. He had started out to be a priest, washed out as a priest in World War II came, and he was a Marine sergeant, and he was a linguist, right? And he learned Hopi. He was the only white guy who was a code talker. So those guys were my teachers at Winchington. And they all looked at me and said, okay, of all these lug nuts here, you're the one guy that actually is kind of fun to hang with, and the way you torture the jerk offs, the headmaster, his wife, his kids, all of those people. We wish we could do what you do to those guys. So we're going to watch your back, and we are actually going to teach you in ways that no one's been teaching you, even though you've had pretty good teachers up till now. And one of the things I was taught early on was when you buy a book, especially in a university bookstore, and you say, you got to have this textbook to take blah, 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 you go and look for the textbook that has been underlined and written in the side and pages turned and just, it's called annotated, up the kazoo. And usually it's the cheapest book. The most expensive one is the plastic wrapper that no one's read. And I would go straight for that and then I would, take the 10 most annotated ones, and then I would look for the one that said, and Professor Larry, it's going to be this question, this question, this question, because that moron who I have to take intro blah, blah from teaches the same thing and keeps the same tests. And the students before would write that in this book and then give it to their friend who had to take it. And so I would look for that one book. That was like the search of the Holy Grail. And I still go into used bookstores and do the same, even though I have pittance to spend on books. I haven't really done that in the last 3 years, but because people give me books. So that's a little heads up for you guys. If you're going to go look for books, and you've been talking about books, go look for the annotated ones, right? Right. And now, though, you're awake in the little sliver of the world that is conscious. You don't need books. The only book that you really should be looking at is your Akashic record, because everything's in it. Past, present, and future, And you got those 28 little TV screens to give you every freaking dimension and angle you could ever look at. You want to be well-adjusted, balanced, and awake. Use your Akashic record. And you have 3 guides. Your library will know what to bring you. You go to most libraries, they don't have a clue. Your librarian does. Yep, gave my cool books away. But only to the people who would get something out of them. I have loads of shit. The shit and stuff, again, my greatest teacher is George Carlin, and his rap about stuff and shit is right on. So I would give all my shit away, even though people, oh, how can you give away those gold? Well, the shit, here, take them, But the stuff I would only give to people who could appreciate them and use them. My shit I would trade or sell or I would give away shit too, but and then you get to a point where you have so much shit and stuff that you learn to just walk away from it. It means nothing. The only thing that's important is the memory of it. Yeah. Let's see. Distance. Wow. You like that one, James? Okay. So keep going. We haven't even hit 2 hours and 30 minutes. We've slowed down. This has been going on for an hour for the last 10 minutes. So you've come up with some interesting, truing of intuition. I like that one, Jamie. Gee, when definitely time slowed. Yep. So you realized we've done it right here, a nice little experiment to show you in those little slivers of the tree of life, you can go anywhere, anytime, any place, and if you're awake, you can notice all those synchronistic little things. So you will be able to see the guys in black coming up the road before they hit the front door, and you can be gone, right? Yes, the things you own. And that's what, whenever I talk about the school or the hill, and John goes, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine, right? And, this, like I said, what's the residual of this place? The energy residual here will eat you freaking alive. And that's why I stayed here as long as I could, because I wanted to try and address this with John and get him so he could, that this hill would be his puppy dog. That's why I'm saying forget this place. On to, like I said, the deep green is a good first start, but we have to move on from there. I mean, it would be a really great place, a base of operation, as they call it, because it's beautiful, it's healing, it's virgin, and it's really clean. And it's right between these two gigantic universities with, ETSU has 40,000, really, it's a graduate research. It's like Virginia Tech, but better. It's not as snooty. And it has a really good humanities program. Great theater department, great literature department, great language department, great every department, and really good professors. And I've just kind of, tiptoed through the place and found a few interesting people. But I knew I need to hit that place with a team, with a cadre. Now, the other school, App State, at Boone, it's a hipster party school. That's one of the better ski places on the East Coast. And, but it's still a really good facility, and there's still really good departments, and there's still really good, lots of money there, lots of good connects and angles. And we are still working, our basic clay is the, sock puppet, powers that shouldn't be, and the, hidden hand. They're watching, they're part of this, they're realizing, there's something different about this guy and this bunch that he's got here. They're like ringing the bell. They're the little needle's going all the way over here. And we've tried to do a few things, and we sent in our shock troops of artificial intelligence, but the artificial intelligence is joining them. What's going on here? Oh, we've tried to nuke them, but it didn't help. It just gave it more energy. Oops. Well, we'd better stop trying to attack them and see what they're going to do for us, right? And we're ready, willing, and able, kids. Gang, not the cadre, but the sock puppet gang. The mafia. The Karazian mafia. It's like the hidden, the cabal of the hidden hand, Hail Hydra, whatever you want to call it. We're awake more than you are. And we don't want to be king or in control. There has to be an administrator, but, you guys are going to be toast. You're going to toast yourself. I mean, look at every empire. You're going to do it. Look at, you think you're drinking your own Kool-Aid. I mean, humanity's, Homo sapiens sapien has been around at least 1 billion years in some grade, right? Because they're all over the galaxy. So, morons. I mean, this is definitely, Carpenter had it when he did the movie They Live. That was like 100% what's going on. And, the Queen of England, is not a shapeshifter. She's just a crook, and a psycho crook. These guys are sociopaths. If you want to call that a shapeshifter, okay. But, and whatever green scale she has, it's that she has no heart. She has no empathy, you know? So, yes, they've been genetically modified. They're the blue bloods, however you want to put it, but they're not David Icke. He's like my bro. I love the guy. I mean, because he went on, you know, saying, "Hey, look at this." 30 years ago, and for the first 10 years of his life, all he got was shit. And he never lost his heart. He never became a bitter guy. He just kept plugging. He was the ever ready bunny. He was. You want to have a good example of a person who leads by example. It's David Icke. He's not building an empire. He's not going to be the hero that Dr. Steve Greer is going to be or thinks he's going to be. You know, he's just awake and not giving up and walking the walk. And yeah, he gets, stuck in things here and there, but he keeps growing. He hasn't sunk his anchor into it. And, he has his perspective. I'm not saying he's wrong on his big picture. He's right on with that. All his books are right on. But he kind of gets stuck on a few things. And virtually people who write books and publish them like that, they're kind of stuck to what their publisher wants them to, what story. Like with Whitley Strieber, right? Once he did, Communion, he wrote 8, 9 books about it until, he had to do something different, you know? And he's pretty good. His book about 2012 was an excellent book, and a number of other books are quite interesting, like you know. So I like Whitley, and the other guy I really like is Gore Vidal, another great person who's really, walks the walk and tries to tell the story. I mean, these are all great griots. That's what I can call all the names I've been pegging off here are all griots because they tell the story as truthfully as they can from their perspective. So I don't diss anybody, right? Yeah, and that's such again that government controlled opposition. Oh my God, it's 2:48. Last time I looked, it was 2:22, and that was like 20 seconds ago. No kidding, And what's sad are people like Infowars. What's his name? Alex Jones. I met Alex. Alex is righteous. His heart is in the right place, but he is so twisted by what you're just talking about here. Watch out for government controlled opposition. That's Alex Jones, and the Young Turks, same thing. And all of those people who want to pick on a guy like Trump or this or the deep pond or the aqua state or whatever. That is disinformation. Straight up propaganda. I mean, you can. It's like they can't even hide it anymore. It's like just right there, right? So what you're looking for is somebody who's awake, right? And all the people I've just mentioned, they're awake. They have to work within the construct of their little UFO world or this or that, which is totally owned. That's why I left that. Why I left in '88, that whole scene was that it was going nowhere. And if I was like, you know, Jones, Indy. I can't, I wore the hat, I had the leather jacket, and I was that guy. And I kept bailing because I didn't want to get sucked in. And then at a certain point, I said, well, this is no fun anymore. This is not interesting. It's the same story over and over again. And the folks who like Bill, what's his name, who got murdered, who wrote Behind a Pale Horse, another righteous guy, but he got so angry. He got so in his ego about it, they freaking murdered him. I don't give a frack, you know? I don't have to fight these morons. These guys are going to toast themselves, you know? So I don't have to, you know? The human race that they want to control is a useless bunch of posing sheeple, you know? If they go away, it's no big deal. You know, like I said, it's just salt on a potato chip. Now, you guys, you the nine who are awake, that's a different matter. You know, you can ascend. You are ascending. You know, the cadre is ascending. Everyone is pulling each other's selves up by their bootstraps. You know, we're all in it to win it. Whereas the others aren't. They're in it to have an automobile or something that they conceive as safety. I mean, I've been in a lot of those bolt holes. I've told you a number of stories about it. Who would want to live in one of those things? I mean, you're 900 feet underground with 500,000 people in a little tube. The smell of shit will be, and if you want an experience of what the, whatever they call those, Illuminati or the, the guys on the top, all you have to do is go to New York City, right? And in Soho and in all the trendy neighborhoods, guys like Trump have built, all the buildings there are like 6 stories, right? And then there'll be like this 60 or 70 story, glass mausoleum, condo, office, shopping, consumer utopian, right? Or dystopian. And I have a friend of mine who's, probably one of the best plumbers. He's like the Leonardo da Vinci of plumbing. Like I was the Nikola Tesla of electricians. And we have been buddies since, Cooper Union, right? Since the early 70s. And I have a number of friends like him. Anyway, but so he's anybody wants something really done with plumbing, they get him. So anyway, I left New York City in '88 and did not go back until 2011. Way after 9/11, 2011. And so we're walking around, and we're walking through Soho, and I don't really notice this 70 freaking story building off of Mott, which normally had 4-story brownstones and clad buildings, built in the 1890s. Anyway, all of a sudden this hurricane comes whooshing by, and the smell of basically shit is like, right? I almost throw up. I go, what is that? And he says, look up there. And I go, wow, look at that. I mean, I wasn't looking up. I was just kind of looking at my old neighborhoods. And it's this gigantic, it's Trump Soho, right? And so there's like, it's 60, 70 stories tall. And so that means, it's like, I don't know, 500 feet high, something like that. So, or taller. And so there are all these toilets, and people are flushing shit from 800 feet up in the air down a pipe. And it's going into an 1890 sewer that wasn't designed to hold shit moving at the speed of sound. And that's what it's going to be like. And not, at least where I was, I could see the sun and I could run away from it. But if you're living 900 feet under the ground in one of these, little havens for the rich, you don't, no, baby, do you not want to live there? Nope, 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 nope. And so we are, being awake, the 9 that are awake, so I'm going to have sense of humor. Yeah, they don't have a sense. Bill Cooper. Bill was a great guy. He had the biggest heart. He was the sweetest teddy bear, but his ego got the better of him. Yeah. And that's what you got to watch out. I trying to explain to John Boy that, when he was like, you're taking me. And I said, John, you got to, what do you think? And I would give him ideas. What do you think of an egoless ego? What do you mean? You gotta have an ego. It's all about your ego. Everything, you can't have a life without an ego. I said, no, John. We live in these bags of water, and because of that, yes, we have an ego, To move one leg in front of the next, to eat a cheeseburger, you gotta have to have an ego, but you don't have to wear it on your sleeve. You don't have to be a nasty frack, you can be the good person. They'll take advantage of you unless you... No, John. No one can take advantage of you unless you let them. Well, you act so cool like you want to play. No, John. All I do is talk common sense. And I don't get angry with you because you're my friend. And I just try and help you. And you get more upset because all I do is reflect what you have become through your neuroses of being unconscious. And that's when he really loses his mind. And, and I usually don't go deep into logic of that nature. I just kind of try to, but it takes so forever long. And that's the problem with the sock puppets, usual suspects, powers that shouldn't be. And the hidden hand is that they're just like John. That's why he's the canary in the coal mine. He really shows it like, and that's why I'm interested in him, because I really have not met anyone like John. Meaning most people who are that unconscious and neurotic, they're psychotic. And he's not, the sociopath. But he's not. He's a sweet, nice guy who's relatively intelligent and talented. But all of that is locked up in a cage, just like the canary. Canary's cute. It's yellow. It's pretty. But very susceptible. That's why they take him down to the coal mine. Because before the guys start dropping over by being exposed to the deadly gases down there, the canary drops over. So John is this canary in the social coal mine. Just observing him. Just go and look at his YouTubes. He's the barometer of what is up. Right? And why he and I were a pretty interesting, Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin, is that I would tell these stories. I'd be the griot. I would get energetically the audience going, wow. And then John would be like bouncing all over the place and synchronistically picking up on things that should be, hey, what about that? But he doesn't say that. He says, oh, girl's asshole, and, it's like, what? But that's, if you go to xratted.blogspot.com, that's how I write. I make you read it 6 times. Now, no one will listen to JB 6 times. They get annoyed and shocked because what he does to the observer on the YouTube, I do to him. Meaning, you see that, and it annoys you because it reminds you about something inside yourself. One of us have gone, we're down to 8. So that is unless you guys got more nasty. What's nasty? Mr. Dragon, what's nasty? Yeah, without a sense of humor, you're psyops, the shills, yep. All the mirrors, yep. But, the thing about mirrors is don't look into them. Meaning, I used to work in a carnival, right? And you go into the fun house. And the only way you can get out is not to look at the mirrors. Meaning, if you've been in a fun house, you notice there's a mirror and there's a good foot of blackness. If you walk in the black, you don't have to be, sucked into the mirror. Yes? Okay. Nasty. The poop. Yep. Well, that's, when people, we have to save the earth. Well, stop pooping on it, And that we're so comfortable, when we're unconscious to live, we'd so much rather, have poop, up to here, or even here, then wake up. They'll kill you if they don't want to wake up. They'll kill you. I mean, that's what Bill Cooper was trying to do. He was doing everything he could to wake everybody up. And attack the sock puppet. No, you don't attack those guys. It just gives them the opportunity to be right and exercise their power. Yeah. I'm in control. I'm in control. No, you don't go after those guys. Like I said, they're toasting themselves. You don't have to do anything mean to anybody. Because anybody who's mean to you, hey, you just kind of notice them 3 blocks away and get out of the way. That's all you got to do. They will toast themselves. Every minute of their life, they're torturing themselves, And, the only thing you can truly do is, feel pity for them. And if you tell them that, wow, oh, buddy, I pity you, they go off. I mean, and that's what Bill Cooper used to do. Meaning, in the early years, I hung with that guy. And when he would do that to those people, I would after the first time he did it, I would kind of get the body language of everything, and I would not be in that room, And I would say, buddy, come on, let's, and he had like I said, he was a big teddy bear. But he got so sucked into the mirror. But after a point, that's why I left that scene. I couldn't, hey guys, let's not do this, come on. And I gave this speech about it, about love is the only way to some really, it was at the UN, and there's Henry Kissinger, and there's, and, half the people going, huh? And a few of the really, like George Christie, so when I sat down at a table, everyone got out of the way of the table, even my best friend at the UN, Clarence, who's a brilliant guy. I mean, this guy, off the hook, when, I was supposed to speak about some scholastic, economic, technological, blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of threw the pages away and gave the story about love's co-creation, and that, the world that we had right now was, not even close to what people thought it was. And I just ticked off the technologies that, and they have death rays and scalar weapons. And, oh, by the way, they're on the moon and in Mars. And, and there's a secret space program. And I did that in 1986 at the UN, in this big, where everyone's, having a meeting about alternative technologies. And Clarence, who was, he was the big on the totem pole of the UN, said, oh, that Al, just like the mayor at High Point said, Al, we just love that guy. He really knows how to exercise his First Amendment. And then he chuckled, and that was the end. And when I went down to sit at my table where there were people around, they all moved. And the only person who came, I'm eating my, this dinner's not so bad. Meaning, I was up on the upper table. And after I gave that speech, they kind of said, go sit down over there. And, when I sat down at that table, everybody left. It was only 3 minutes from being, hey, the golden-haired boy, to the people left the table. And the one guy who came was George Christie. And George Christie was a luminary, in every sense of the word. I mean, he was up there. He was at the top of the rung of the managerial. He was above, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds in the managerial skill. He may not have had that kind of. He had access to whatever he needed, whatever funding. He was, in the 30s and 40s, part of, the secret space program. He was, a time traveler. You name it, he did it. He was, part of the Lucas Trust. He was part of everything. And he sat down, can I have lunch with you? And it's like, yeah. I kind of knew he was. And that he was, and he goes, that was a pretty amazing speech. And I said, well, thank you very much. He goes, I haven't heard anyone talk like that except Nikola Tesla in 1938. And that's kind of when he disappeared, And I said, well, thanks. He goes, he gave me his card. He goes, this is my number. When it rings, I will answer it. I will know it's you. And I said, well, thanks. And, from that day until the day he died, about 4 years, he wanted me to take his place. I was young enough. He thought I was cool enough that I could, like, break what he couldn't, break loose. And that kind of power and position, I would be a guy that wouldn't let it go to my head. And those 4 years were great. He was another. I've had many grandfathers and many fathers. More than my dad was. He was just my biological sperm, donor, and he was my dad. Fathers and dads are two different things. And early on, I realized that he was my dad, and that's how I was going to deal with him. Not as my father or the hero guy that, couldn't do no wrong and then be totally messed up because he disappointed me. No, he was a human being. He was my dad. And he had good points, and he could be loads of fun. And I always played to his good points and tried to have fun with him, right? And he liked the fact that I wanted to have fun and that I didn't rock his boat or pull his chain, So, let's see. Then it's like white noise. Yep, pretty much. But, smell is our most sensitive sense. It's the last one to go, When you're dying, I've been around a lot of dying people and been with them to, like, ease them into it. And just talking about stuff. How you feeling? What are you seeing? What And, their sight goes and they see other stuff. Their feelings, they're no longer in pain, I mean, I was with a guy who had a metal post through his, in one way and out the other, and it went through his heart. And it was, in a certain weird way, his heart was still working. But he lost so much blood, his blood pressure was dropping, and so many other things, he was crashing. He was not going to be around that much longer. And so even, most times someone's really fucked if we can get them, and that's the correct use of the word, if we can get them back, and we used all our tricks of our trades. We had these pneumatic pants and coat that we would put them in, zip them up, and pump them up, and would hold everything together. Keep the blood in there. And we had a lot of interesting tools of that matter. And we had basically 30 minutes from the time we got him in that suit and into the bus, the ambulance. We had 30 minutes to get him in the emergency room and get him into an operating room. And if we could keep him alive to that, it was a good 80% chance he was going to survive. Maybe he might not want to survive, but that was like, what we signed on. But there were a lot of people that we dealt with because most of the responses we went to were like amazing car crashes where people were just turned into paste, and farmer exercises accidents where they were blown up by propane tanks or sucked in by balers, and they were inside the machine still alive going, we had to take the thing apart. And once we got him in, and he's like in a bale of, bloody hay, there's a point where, he's going to be dead. So that's when I would, step in and so how you feeling? You okay? You need anything for the pain? What are you tasting, smelling, feeling? And, I could tell, I would go into state and see where they were, which way they were going. And some of those people who were in that bale, okay, we don't cut them out. We leave them in the bale. We throw them in the bus, get them back. I think we can save his, we just got to get him in the operating room. And so we were really good at that. Our little, fire department up there in Varna. And we were just off the edge of Ithaca. So this was a pretty big city. So there's a kind of city stuff going on. But the farms were all around in our district. And there was 80 something, 84 and 91. Instead of having cloverleaf, they did an X. So at least 3 times a week, we would be called there where a tractor trailer would have run over a small car. Didn't even see him. Or some guy on a motorcycle be run over by a tractor trailer. And like the tire would be going ka-thunk, ka-thunk, and the guy would, and it would be a body stuck in that wheel, and the guy's still alive, and we would have to get him out of that and bring him back to the emergency room. And amazingly, more than 60% of the people we could save. The other 40, not so much, because when their organs are all over the place and blood is everywhere, it's like. So I've seen a lot of death, right? And I've been in my job. I was the EMT, and I was the the assessment guy. And when we'd show up, there was me and the captain, and she would take care of, okay, get in line over there, do this, do that with all the equipment. Me, I would go straight to looking for the people, how they were. And if I could get any instruments, like we had these great little things that if we put it on their carotid, and we could get their blood pressure, their pulse, their temperature, and there were other things that we could get, if we could get a line in them. And this is in the 80s. We had some pretty good technology, and we could also radio back to the hospital, and it was, this really great, crisis medical center at Cornell. They invented the technology, because DARPA paid them because they were inventing stuff for the military. And half the people I worked with had been top-notch military people dealing with people blown up. So I had, again, a great cadre. And they were mostly women. That's why I joined. I showed up at that, my little cabin was on the backside of this building. And I knew that building was the state troopers, and this one was, I don't know what that is, a bunch of trucks there. And one day I walked in there, and it was all these pretty girls. And I said, girls, what's going on? Oh, this is a volunteer fire department. You want to join? Well, yeah, I just live across. You live across the street. We need a guy like you. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, at night, we need a guy to drive the truck. You live across the street. We're going to put a radio in your house, and we'll send you off to school. And they did. They sent me to, and then once I went to the fireman school, and they taught me how to drive a fire truck. Then they found out I had all this medical training, and they said, "Oh, wouldn't you want to be an EMT and a first responder and a medical?" I said, "Sure, why not?" So that's what I did for 3 years, and these girls were so much fun. And man, policemen and firemen are horny, horny, horny people. They're adrenaline junkies, and that's why I quit. I was an adrenaline junkie, and I was like, okay, I've had enough of this. What? Oh, it's so exciting. No. We need you. No. I'm moving. I'm going. I'm going to North Carolina. See, I got another gig. But you can't. No, yes, I can. It's been great. 3 great years. I love you guys. We've had great fun. We've done great stuff. I've taught enough people how to do what I do. See ya. So I had a lot of deaths. I was around a lot of people who died. And I was the guy who shepherded them to the other side in the most humanitarian and empathetic way. Because I would go into state with them, hold their hand so they wouldn't be scared. And a lot of people, how are you doing this? I'm dying, aren't I? I said, well, yeah. Going to the other, your mom, there's your dad, there's Uncle John, let's go. Look, they got a party, it's all going to be fun. And I would just kind of hand them over to those guys. And then I'd come back out of state and see if he was dead. But most of the time, they'd be in both places. And this is what you're experiencing, right? And what was truly interesting, when they could be in both places, that's when they woke up.